Okay, let's, Mike, are you okay? Is everybody okay? We got the
Yeah.
presentation on the...
No more, yeah.
Okay, I think you can just say bing and we'll switch the slides or something.
Hit the bell.
Would you like me to get going then?
Sure, yeah, yeah.
What was it on?
It doesn't magnify you, it just records for...
Okay, sorry about that. Well, Your Worship, members of council, staff, actually it's my pleasure to be here to do your asset management plan, talk about it. I love doing it for small, medium-sized communities because you always have the greatest desire and ability to implement the things that I talk about. So as I get closer to retirement, it's always good to see people doing it and implementing it. So what I'm going to do is I'll tell you the slide I'm on as well. So I'm on slide 2. I'm going to put it in a little bit of perspective in a broader sense of what is happening in BC and Canada. So when you hear some of the results of what I found when I built your model, you're not overly shocked. You're in very good company, in fact. So don't start selling the farm just yet. So I'll go through, give you that, talk about what I found with your infrastructure, the level of detail that the model was based upon, the funding gap that I see there, what it actually means, and how you might think of interpreting it, and some next steps to do. Some of these are next steps that a lot of other communities that are doing, especially the ones that Cecile just mentioned. They're all sort of undertaking these next steps as well. The best thing you can ever do with an asset management plan is respond to it. It gives you a lot of wonderful guidance on how to move forward. One of the other neat things is, and I think this came out of Ontario, has recently put out legislation that if you want infrastructure grants, you must have an asset management plan, right? And everything in their requirements is everything you just got, because I've been plugged in there as well. So you've already got something. I think BC is going to announce something similar. So this, what you've just built, will qualify you right now for those future infrastructure grants, which I'm hoping are coming into 2014. Slide 3. The Canadian Federation of Municipalities sanctioned a report that found that the Canadian municipal deficit was, in 2007, was about $123 billion. That's just the municipal deficit. That's not federal or provincial infrastructure, just municipal. That was expected to grow to about $150 billion, and it keeps spiraling, and you're going to see why it just keeps growing in a little bit. The BC portion, I've estimated at about $18 billion, but that's a deficit that you get, or deficit. The FCM likes to call it deficit. I think it's really more of a backlog rather than a deficit. I think it's something that you're cost risk managing, and you should do that. I'm going to talk about that a bit. So, in this number that you see there, 16%. About the deficit of that 18 billion based on replacement value of infrastructure is about 16% in BC. And I'm going to come back to that number. Your number is actually 10%, so that's not bad. You're ahead of the curve. So we just go through some things: what you own, how much it costs, the funding gap, etc. Slide 4, I'm talking about the overall asset management process, because it really is a process of what have I got in terms of infrastructure. And actually, at UBCM, one of the things I'd mentioned at that panel workshop was, I think of infrastructure very much as why people come to live in your community, right? If you have a good road system, a good water system, a sanitary system, you have libraries, you have schools, it's the infrastructure that's enabling and allowing people with like interests to come together to live in same space. Now, they don't like each other, so they get a police force, right? But that's not infrastructure, and you want them to stay, so you build, you bring in teachers, and health programs. But it's the infrastructure, and I guess Venice is a great example of that, right? Without the infrastructure, it's nothing. But with it, it's not just residents, it's industry, right? But it's the infrastructure. Kuwait, when it builds an infrastructure plan, and I've done a lot of work in the Middle East, they will actually build the city first, and then people move into it, right? It's so infrastructure, again, is such an enabler. So what do I own? How much does it cost? How can I control those costs? What revenues do I have to offset those costs? Do I not have enough? How do I adjust those revenues to balance costs against revenues so that I can find my affordability limit? If I don't, you're going to find that a deficit keeps growing. And that's what we've found in Canada and US and other places. So rather than let the story end there, I talk about some things that you can get to try to make that balance over time. Slide 5. So this asset management investment plan is based on a model that we developed, right? So the model is very detailed, and on the walls here you see what I call a level 1.
It's all fun for you.
If you look down the right-hand column, you're going to see all the types of infrastructure, the linear at the top, the non-linear at the bottom, so it'll go water system, sanitary, storm, road, and then it'll get into fleet and building sort of thing. And under there, there's some high-level details. These are all sort of a roll-up from highly detailed, like every section of water pipe you own by section is in the model. What material is in it, right? Every section of road is in there. So everything is in there, but it just rolls up so you can see it all in one place. But it's based, the model is driven by the age of the infrastructure, the materials of that infrastructure. It also allows you to put in condition assessments that correct for the service life, to extend it or reduce the service life, as well as corrections for obsolescence. Sometimes buildings become obsolete. So it gives you huge flexibility, and it's driven by the latest construction costs that you're getting in Rossland. So it takes what you're actually getting and what you bid and is driving the model. So the costs you see in there are based on what you would get on a current bid.
Mike, excuse me, sorry. We do have another one here if you want to use that, if it helps your presentation.
I'm okay.
I think we're all
You're
right.
okay with that?
Yeah.
Thanks anyway, Darren. I lost my train of thought. Having an old-timer moment.
You were talking about
Construction costs, yes. And then we used, and then I used service life. Now, service life, every community in Canada went through what was called a PSEB 3150, tangible capital asset exercise. And they look at sort of the lowest age of a typical asset. What I do is, because that's such a typical age, average age, it's not as long as what you usually see when you have good maintenance on it. So I take those and I stretch the service life out based on what I'm seeing in communities around BC, around the Kootenays. So the service life, again, so I've used the most accurate cost you can get, stretch the life out longer so it doesn't look, so it doesn't look like you're building a wish list, right? So then once all that's done and it's all populated and I correct for all missing data and things, you get what's on page 6. Now, page 6 is showing you a summary again. This is all based on very, very fine detail. In fact, the finest detail that you have available. So at the bottom, again, down the right-hand side, you will see the class of asset, whether linear, non-linear. Across the bottom, you'll see the totals. And these are key. Across the top of the columns, you're going to see some key things, like the replacement value in 2013 dollars, you own about 180 million worth of infrastructure. That's a big number. The average life of your infrastructure is about 48 years, and that is very consistent with what I find in communities. It'll range up to, it'll get up as high as 50 in a smaller community, but it'll drop down also to 45 in a larger community. The remaining life of your assets is about 22 years, so you're just past the half-life, and you have a backlog. You'll also hear this called infrastructure deficit if you're with, if you go to FCM or Infrastructure Works. They call it a deficit. It's really a backlog. But so you think of that word interchangeably, and I'll explain why I think it's a backlog and not a deficit in a moment. That's at 17.7 million. And your ideal budget, an ideal budget, is about 3.71 million capital renewal on infrastructure per year. I'm going to put that into perspective for you, both of those numbers, as I work through. Now on to slide 7. This is just taking, because when you start programming these things, and I'll program, the model can go out as long as you want it to go, to 100 years, whatever. Infrastructure, like repeated, I keep it in this model you're seeing up there, the summary. It's kept to 20 years because it just gets repetitive after that. But this is showing you what happens, what needs to be replaced in that 20-year period. Although the model that you have, all you do is you just tell it when it's 2014, and in a second it recalculates and says, okay, now things have all aged a year. What did I do last year? Nothing goes into deficit. Something, then the deficit lowers, sort of thing. So you just see sort of a general trend there, and I'm going to try and put that into perspective for you. The deficit, actually, 2013, you're seeing a very large number. That's the deficit in there, backlog. Because you're cost risk managing that. That is there, that number, the 17.73 million, is what you're cost risk managing right now. By the type of material it is, or the model, the age of it, it should really have failed by now, or it's just thinking about failing. Some infrastructure lasts longer, some will last shorter. That's not bad. I think you should always make an asset sweat, right? And that's why I think it's backlog and not a deficit, because sometimes I've seen, especially on water pipe, or you'll go down and it almost looks brand new to me, even after 40 years. But there's others that'll have a flaw that'll be gone in 5 years or something, right? Mm-hmm. Or it won't get compacted during construction and it's all flat. So you don't know what you're going to get, but what it's saying is, you know, if it was broken, you'd have fixed it. So it isn't broken yet. So you're cost risk managing it. But you know that whole column is just going to tumble down into those years because it's old, really. It is old and it's aging. It's starting to have, if it's water pipe, it's starting to leak, right? You've got high pressure zones, you're really squeezing a lot of water out, that's costing you money. So you want to start thinking in terms of how much should I cost risk manage, and we'll talk about that at the end. Slide 8, just a quick summary. Your backlog deficit, 17.73, that's about 10% of replacement value. That's about as low as I've ever seen it. So that's not a bad thing. But that's never what concerns me is the percentage. It's shoot, of that 17.73, what if 10% of that goes a year? That's a big number, right? So where am I getting that money now if it goes? Because I know I'm cost risk managing it. So think in terms of how much do I want to cost risk manage, right? So that's where I would use that number. But that's why I don't call it deficit, because right now I think that the federal government, the provincial government are looking at trying to fund deficit, but funding it, even though you're cost risk managing it, and it doesn't make any sense to me, because there isn't enough money to go around. We should be more careful about what should be cost risk managed and what shouldn't. I'm more worried about a water pipe that might break and undermine foundations of buildings than I am about a water pipe that's going through a field somewhere. I can hit that and get it fixed up, but it's going to cost me a fortune to replace it. So I'm thinking in terms of, where do I want to cost risk manage these things? And cost risk managing, there's different levels of assets too. Like some things would worry me less. A vehicle doesn't stop. It's not related to winter maintenance. I would always protect winter maintenance. But a vehicle that just happens to die, well, maybe I can go out and buy one within a week or so. Or so you can put a lot of logic on what you want to cost risk manage. Your infrastructure has passed its half-life. That's not uncommon with the communities around. Now, the ideal budget level of 3.71 is based on very detailed information, so you won't be able to recreate it based on the 20 years, because that number, the model says, well, how long are you going to last for? So PVC pipe, it's going to say, well, you're lasting 100 years, so it's going to be how much you cost divided by 100. So, and if a pickup truck, my life's going to be 15 years, so it's thinking about replacing it over 15. So the model's thinking about how long it actually lasts. But I have found that the communities that I've done asset management plans for typically fund about 40% of that ideal number, almost consistently, which doesn't surprise me because I think communities tend to benchmark a lot and benchmark against rates and taxes and things. So it always sort of seems in that range. But you do need to find your affordability limit, because what's happening, 10 years ago, $1 now was worth 10 cents, right? And I think if we build our communities now based on what inflation was 50 years ago, when energy was, a gallon of gas was nothing, we had one working spouse, not the two working spouses, I'm not making a statement, but things were so much different, your choices between sneakers were white or black, right? So, but since then, you've got all of this Me Too came and piled on, and now it costs a fortune to do things. And every time we want to do things, we do it under an infrastructure works program where every consultant and construction company thinks, wow, I can increase my prices. And they do. Every time you will see construction costs go up, and right after it, you watch them all come sliding down. Some of it's legitimate, they have to hire more, but most of it, a lot of it is Me Too. So our whole approach, if I'm thinking strategically or BC-wise or Canada-wise, is not the right way to try to take what little money we have, try to get it all done at once, so costs go up and we get less. So again, all of these dynamics are coming together to make it almost impossible for us to repair our communities. Also, grant programs tend to be around improvements, something new, not renewal, but here's some, and which I always find it remarkable. Federation of Canadian Communities comes out and says we got a $150 billion deficit. Go build more stuff. Here's some more money, right? It just seems odd. So we have to do it. And in most of the communities I work with, I'll say at UBCM, make sure you say to the provincial government, and if there's a federal person there, you've got to fund renewal, right? We've got to stop adding little bits to our community. Let's make sure we can sustain them, because the economy of BC and Canada is on the ground in our communities. It's not in an arbitrary thing called Canada or the province. It's in a mill, it's in a mall, right? It's arriving by general merchandise in a truck. So we have to start thinking very carefully about those things. We will see bankruptcies in smaller communities over the next 10 years, no question. They can't afford their infrastructure, because we're at the sweet spot, right? We're at that spot where everything is about 50, 40 years old, right? So we were left with the choice, what we need to do, but we're solving a problem we didn't create. So remember, when you see these numbers, think, we didn't create this. It was created 50, 40 years ago when reserves weren't being built up, right? When you first build, I always tell someone that gets a new development, Kelowna is a great example. You get a new development and you get very excited, I've got a new development, but they gave you the gift of having to build up reserves immediately, all right? So if that new development is $20 million in infrastructure, they gave you the gift of having to put away 1/50th, or in your case, 1/48th, did I say, we average like 48, 1/48th of that per year in reserves, so you don't have to borrow, because borrowing and debt servicing can really hurt you, right? So there's a lot to think about how you move forward on it, but I do believe that we have to get provincial and federal governments funding renewal. It takes pressure off reserves, and it helps reduce, it really does attack that backlog and deficit. The next on slide 9, this is showing really, it is a very high level way of getting to it. So what I plotted in the blue line there is that's 3.71 million ideal budget. The budget down there that's 40%, so I just guessed at your number. Your capital investment number would be around 1.5 something.
That guess is 1.5. When we did the 5-year plan, a few months ago, we put a placeholder of 2 million.
And okay.
But it includes all capital.
Okay, and this is just infrastructure. So you're sort of in that zone there. So it's a combination of how much more can the community afford versus dropping down a level of service, or extending the life of the asset. If you can just draw it out, right? Doing this for Vernon right now in the roads, where we finished the asset management plan, we're thinking about how do we get this in. One of them is we're going to try to do more road maintenance just to stretch the age of the surface and the base out longer. That reduces the, you don't have to have as frequent interventions in capital. So that's really what you're going to do. And it'll probably come more, and it could also be a level service decrease, right? The thing about infrastructure is it just ages and dies, right? So it has no ulterior motive. It will age and die. So, and we're pretty good engineering-wise based on materials, what we're going to see and how long it will live. So if you can't get the money and you just say, well, don't worry about it, we'll get it somehow, and it doesn't, you'll just get infrastructure failures, right? You'll start getting the leaks, especially in the high-pressure zones, right? Cranbrook, there's sanitary sewer system, gets a lot of breaks, right? And Grand Forks, you're from Grand Forks, right? Sanitary sewer, I remember talking to the mayor when we were just going through it with council, and he said, we had another sewer break, and of course it flooded a couple of basements. And I said, where was it? And I plotted it, and I said, that was priority number 80. I wonder what's holding the first 79. Right? But it was going to break. It was right on the list of things that were going to pop. It should have. There was in Richmond, there was a water pipe. Was it a water pipe? Or a stormwater pipe, right? And it was built in clay, really good clay. But it had a leak, so they dug down to get it. And it was just the clay that remembered the tile pipe that was there. The tile pipe was long gone. Right? Anyway, so next steps. Now that you've got this, one of the things I was showing Cecile, when I did it for Cranbrook, the model that's built, they went and built this neat little report card, and they've got it on their website now, so you'll see this one just says roadway system, and then there's water system, and then there's sanitary sewer, and there's storm. And it just tells a story about their infrastructure that they use to engage the public. So you have all of this information in your model. I'm just going to send them the template to Cecile, and you can just fill it in. It's sort of a neat thing. It gives you a good storyline of what you got. If you're ever engaging, or even going for grants, UBCM say, look, there's a lot of red here, a lot of renewal required. Want to help us with this, and then we'll build new things. So next steps.
So here's a crazy question for you. So say the town of Rawson's doing a fairly in the ballpark job, right? And then there's other communities not doing, and we provide reports like you're saying. So you got the Government of Canada and the Province of BC funding these things, relatively speaking, not necessarily going to reward the ones doing it right, but wanting to make sure that everybody catches up. What if you do too good of a job? Do you find yourself, you're above the average, or below the average in this case? You don't need funding yet, and we got all these other people to take care of. Like, have you seen any of that? Have you been on the other side, seen the way that they vet the funding that comes out? Because it seems ridiculous to even propose the question, but I could see the government's doing that, saying, we got to catch these poor buggers up. And, Rawson's okay right now. We won't fund them.
There's that and there's more, right? What about the ones that just don't want to build a plan, or build a plan that's, and I've seen plans that says, we've got a deficit, and I'll say, where is it? Well, I don't know, but it's about that big, right? And what happens is you don't know where it is. If it's not that truck, and if it's not that road, if it's not that pipe, and you can't find it in GIS space, when you get that money, you're going to think, hey, do we need a new pool? Right? Hey, do we need a ring? So I think, but how do you get patronage out of grant programs? The infrastructure doesn't care, right? So it gets down to how willing are people that are funding these programs willing to sincerely do their jobs rather than spend this much money trying to keep them. It's really, they're not fooling anybody. We all know it. I think politics is the oldest career, right? And notwithstanding present company, but
Of course.
and I think that if some haven't done a good job, I think they still get it. Look at the last Infrastructure Works program with the money that was the communities, when the plans that went into that last infrastructure works program, I asked a lot of communities I work for right across Canada, especially in Ontario, they said, we didn't even put that project forward. You know, and so you get that sort of thing. We have a very severe problem in Canada, and we need to address it. And if they're not going to look for compliance, and I don't think compliance means, every community has the right to have different revenue generating potential, right? So I find it very difficult to compare one community to another. But some communities can, in negative population growth, you know, increasing rates and taxes, and those are a lot more severe than ones that's in 2% population growth, right? So I don't think that should factor into it. I think that I think that it should be looked at where, if you've done your infrastructure program, you have a legitimate backlog, not something you're cost risk managing, right? Make your assets sweat, that you have a legitimate case, whatever the magnitude of the community next door, right? Because you're rewarding bad practice rather than good practice. It doesn't make sense, you know. It's like robbing. I'm on my way home tonight.
Take a breath. You take a breath soon?
Do I need to?
Yeah, take a breath.
On my way home tonight, I rob a bank in Grand Forks, right? And I get pulled over by the police, and they say, "Don't ever do that again, but keep the money." Right? I'm going to rob a bank again, right? But you don't do stuff like, if you're going to reward good behavior, reward sincere behavior, because I think that's what we want to benchmark, community to community, right? And if we start benchmarking that good behavior, then it becomes infectious versus the other way. Do I have any hope for it? I have a foot in that camp as well, because we have to be practical. But I don't think you'll be punished for it. If you did, I'd make a case to the Auditor General, right? No, and I'll write it for you.
I have a bit of a follow-up too, in terms of communities. I mean, obviously this is your primary focus, but this is like line item budget number one, this infrastructure deficit across Canada, I would imagine, not just in Rossland, but everywhere. And getting our communication out with the newsletter format that you're talking about to the public, because we have a lot of you end up with a lot of pressure to spend money in different areas.
Yes.
And we've got this freight train coming, and we're doing this to expose it and show the community, okay, we've got to get on this and get working on it. And I think that any kind of other communication strategies that you've seen would be great for us, because I'd like to get as much information out to the public as possible, so that it could possibly help stem the tide of the request for everything else that people might request a small town like Rossland, when we have to deal with this first, as far as I'm concerned. So communication stuff is what I'm asking.
Communication, if I could add something though to what Mike was saying. I don't know if you heard the first part where Mike was talking about FCM coming out with a program for infrastructure renewal, hopefully in 2014. Is that what you were saying?
I think it'll be a federal, provincial, not FCM, but FCM.
So if you have a good asset management investment plan in place and a good strategy, we're hopeful that you would go to the top of the class. And what you're saying is, yeah, it's always there. So I met with Glenn Brown a few years ago, 2-3 years ago, and we talked about that, about the provincial and federal governments wanting the municipalities to do their share and step up to the program and do these asset management plans. And we talked about then the provincial and federal government has to start giving incentives and putting these people who are doing it at the top of the list, not at the bottom. So I think a lot of that could be a political statement that could be taken to UBCM if you have enough communities get together and say, look, we're doing our homework. But it's going to be an upward battle for sure.
And I think what we find is, whatever the plans come out, it should be very similar to what your experience is or what I find in others. It'll be about your deficit, their deficits or backlogs will be right around 10 to 16%. Highest I've seen is 19, and everyone will be funding about 40% of what they should be doing ideally. I'd be shocked if it was different. I really would.
Mm-hmm.
But you never know. again, and a lot of it is, it's got to be in detail. And that's why I like the Ontario one, where you have to show where it is, and then, but you want to prove that you spent it on that, but you don't want to spend as much money as you spent fixing it, trying to track and monitor and report, right? And watch for that, because that happens. But so next steps. Now, next steps, I'm helping Cecile develop a revenue model. This is a model that models municipal finance, and allows you to look at the impacts of changing capital programs and phasing rate tax fee increases, borrowing debt charges based on different interest rates. So you have a tool that is extremely flexible, you can use year after year, to help say, well, with these, under these economic conditions, what does our future look like? You know, so because you tie really what it is it tries to balance cost and funding cash flow analyses for infrastructure. And it's not just you can actually phase any type of increase, so it doesn't have to be a lot. You can see the impact of phasing it year after year as you go out. But risk management, and again, I think you want to get into that and just know what are your critical assets and where they are in GIS space, and what is the subclass of that asset, right? Is it something I'm really worried about, or is it so critical that I'm just not going to cost risk manage it, right? So you need to do that step, and it's not difficult. You've got GIS, you can set up risk polygons and look where they overlap, and it's a really easy thing to do. You've got the revenue model. I was going to say economies of scale. When in the valley, when I do the asset management plans in the Okanagan Valley, I try to get the communities to think in terms of getting a joint program in the future, right? If we could just do, say, for example, get one crack ceiling for all the roads in the valley, I think the price would just come crushing down, right? Versus if just Little Enderby went or Lake Country went. We actually tested it. We got all the operation groups together, and we said, what are we going to test it with? Well, we have to test it with something that we don't have to get council or finance involved in, right? So we tested it with just a chlorine purchase. And Penticton said, okay, I'll buy it. You guys pay me for it. Went like that. Yeah. Happened. Got a good price. No, we just did it. So we knew we could do it if we could get finance and the political environment involved in it, right? So, but as you get bigger, and you have to actually contract, I think you have to create an entity to contract to do the crack ceiling. It doesn't mean you can't, and I don't know what type of economy of scale you'd get, but it's something worth testing going forward, right? I would, and there's some other things we're doing too, like on Vernon and Lake Country right now, in West Kelowna, is we're looking at the road of just squeezing the cross sections in again to reduce what has to be repaved every year without compromising the integrity. So, I mean, it still is looking at the vulnerable users, the bike traffic and the walking public, and keeping them separate from traffic. So we're still looking at that, but just squeezing it in, that automatically drops that ideal budget. Every time you stretch life out, that budget drops down like this. And you can play with it in the model, actually. You can stretch your road lives out and say, okay, an arterial road lasts 25 years. What happens? It'll go like this, right? My road widths are like this, and it'll go like this. It'll keep dropping as you play with it. But when you do extend the life, it means you're putting more maintenance on it, right? You're really hitting the potholes, you're getting your drainage done. So there's so many things you can do.
But what you're saying also goes this asset management plan goes right down to your planning department and your maintenance department working together, understanding that a 5-meter road, what are the effects of a 5-meter road in a town like Rawson for snow road? If they're effective, then that's fine. If they're not, we've got a 7-meter road now. Now we don't need that 2 meters of asphalt. And what does that mean for the full life of the thing in 100 years from now?
Yes, absolutely.
Right. Sure. Okay.
So we, to that point, in the Vernon one that we're doing now, of course, summer and winter maintenance are part of the costs. Because that's what the tax or taxpayer experiences. So we have roads that are 12 meters wide. That's 4 passes of the plow
Mhm.
versus, right, because you can get the blade with a flange, I think you might get 3.5 meters, Darren? Yeah, so 7-meter road is your spot, right?
Bingo.
And then some people say, well, just leave a windrow in the middle, and I say, well, if you don't need left-hand turns, that's okay. But yes, it's a
Go well in
holistic
Rockland.
look, and it also, and I'm glad you brought it up because I forgot, it's about a cross-functional team. So actually, if you're at that workshop in UBCM, I said, you have to have a cross-functional team to do this. You have to have maintenance, operations, you have to have planning there. And if planning doesn't have bylaw, then you have to have bylaw there too, because planning and bylaw don't always see the same, right? And you have to have finance there. So it's a team because Rossland is just a Disneyland. People want to come and live here, come to your Disneyland because it has things that they want. If you don't have them, they won't come, right? Some people might want a high school. Some people might want a university, or people that are aging want health services, right? If you don't have it, then it's not an attraction that they would come to. So I would put economic development, I think, as part of asset management. How do I increase the revenues in my community? How do I move it up out of negative or flat population growth to a preferred level of growth? It's the business of this community. I wish I owned a city, right? Can you imagine? Can't
Apparently
afford
there's
it.
a couple coming up for
They're all too run down for it.
We can help you out.
Touche.
Anyway, really,
No, location, right?
more
Anyway,
questions
that's
of
all
Michael? Any more
Thank you.
questions of Michael?
No, that was great, thanks.
I guess I just, wanted to comment that, despite all this asset management, modeling, which is, it's very interesting, I find it very interesting, but I guess my overall comment would be that, and you've said it, as have many others here, that all municipalities in Canada are facing these issues. So when we say, we have to manage it, we know we have to manage it, just as every municipality has to somehow manage it. But I guess my comment above and beyond that is if you want your communities and your municipalities to really stand out, there's other things. Like, to me, this is, the bread and butter of communities, right? Pipes and roads and all that kind of infrastructure, buildings and fleets and equipment and all of that. We all have to have that. And how we manage it, some better than others and some with much more revenue than we find ourselves in Rossland. But my point is about revenue generation. And the point is that, we have to look outside the box to get to revenue generation. And in Rossland, it's been dismal, right? We have residential, tax base basically, and we don't have a lot else. So when it comes to renewing and revitalizing all this, we know we have to do that. But I guess my worry is that, to take our eyes off the things that are really maybe progressive or potentially revenue generators in the future, to help this situation, we have to remember that as council, right, and as a community. And don't get bogged down by this, because to me this bogs down, right? Like this is the story. This is the story of Rossland. But at the same time, I don't want it to detract us from other initiatives that potentially could create economic development, as you said.
Well, I'm a big fan of economic development.
Yeah.
I would just build. And I think that you're absolutely right. But that's part of it. This is the starting point for you, right?
Right.
So what it helps you do, and I've always thought, where do you start with asset management? And you always want to start with the costs and then get to, well, how do I afford this?
Mm-hmm.
But in affording it, so you don't want to just have your head down trying to fix things, because you could have a road that's just in pristine condition, but is just full of accidents and collisions, right?
Mhm.
And that's the wrong thing to do. So you have to step up and think, where does Rossland want to be? And always have that vision of where you want to be and what type of community. The target market, what is that you want to attract to your community, whether it be business or industry or residents? What are those attributes? And when you sort of have a good handle on that, you know what rides or amenities you have to build to attract them. And I think that's
Yeah,
what you were
that's what I'm
saying.
getting at, yeah.
Absolutely. If you can generate revenue to help in the future to help offset this, I think that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But Again, that's why the next part, right, the revenue generation one is
Yeah.
so critical to it.
Yes, absolutely.
And everything is in a balance in your community, right? So you don't want to, sometimes I'll go into a community and the most charismatic person is the roads, and then the roads tend to get too much, but that doesn't make any sense. It's the balance for the community. It's the buildings, the type of buildings, the function they provide, right? Those other amenities, the water system, the quality of the water, the watershed. There's so many, people focus on pipe, I'm focused on the watershed, right? Because a big supply of something that's no good is no good, right? So no, I would agree. Look up and downstream from this and look long-term.
Yeah, and I think our OCP and our, you know, our sustainability plan, you know, we've got guiding documents, and they speak to the community that you want to live in and that you want to promote, basically. And I'm just saying that this, to me, it's great. I appreciate it, but at the same time, it's, you know, communities are much more than the assets or the decreasing assets. Can I ask you a question about one of the slides before we're done? It's slide 9, and the service decrease, that's your graph there, we've got the funding increase and the service decrease.
Yes?
So the blue line with the service decrease, so decreasing services, so, you know, there's many ways that communities can potentially do that, but what have you seen communities do to decrease services? And I don't mean snow removal, because that's part of who we are in Rawson in the winter. But what other services or what suggestions have you seen or other communities do? I'm just curious. Like, does it mean closing arenas? Does it mean closing parks? Does it mean, yeah, what does it mean service decrease there as far as asset management goes?
It's, the biggest bang you can get on a level of service would be a surface asset, where most of the public, so roads or transportation system is one of the biggest ones.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can, and actually by squeezing the lanes a bit, you can control speed as well. But I'm not that I'm factoring that in. But surface assets are the ones that you can decrease future capital costs a lot on. When you're looking at renewing a building or doing another building, make sure that it has the functionality you want or it has for the future. You know, having parks and continuing to fix parks in areas that are predominantly senior citizens doesn't make sense, but I see that a lot. So you really just want to reconcile what you own, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would even, I like the concept of regionalizing some common infrastructure if you can. I think you're doing that with your water system, your sanitary sewer. And those are, I mean, you don't know how that's going to go forward, but that's something to do.
I'd like to comment on that. I think, not that it's an unfair question, I think it's a good question. I think every community has its own issues, and when you start with this and you start to get down to the assets that you have and where they're at in their useful life, that's when you're really going to get a sense of, okay, if we cut the level of service here, here's the risk, here's what it's going to cost, here's what's going to save. And you start to look at all your buildings and you see where they're at individually. What are you getting them from? Like, what are you getting for them? What are you using them for? What's their focus? And it's something that every community has to look at. I mean, if you're in a community where the roads are really, really wide and there's no snow and you make them narrow, that works. That might not work here for us. Right? You have to look at it at a whole different level.
Well, the thing that it's really, that jumps out at you with something like this is that you have different citizens in this town are going to have different areas where they appreciate assets that we have at different levels.
Right.
So where some people might appreciate trails a lot, some people would appreciate the arena a lot, some people would have like the curling rink or the parks or the ball diamonds or the size of the roads or the width of the area where people can walk, all of those things. So when you go to decrease those service areas by whatever amount, then you're going to have a public debate on that overall, because you're always going to affect some person when you decrease service somewhere. And hopefully at the point, or alternatively, you just increase taxes, which I absolutely hate, but some people think it's fine to increase taxes, to keep a service level at the base that it's at currently. But based on the model that you're showing us, some things have to change.
I'm really hoping that the provincial and federal governments will start funding renewal programs. And I think that's going to take almost all of your problem away. I think you can, I've heard there might be a 10-year multi-billion dollar program. If that happens, and they direct it towards renewal, then it solves a lot of your problems, right? Because you can risk manage so much. Renewal's not a problem because they're funding it. That takes pressure off your need to build reserves, and you can redirect those reserves towards other infrastructure. So one of the next steps is that last one bullet. That's the big one. Pursue FCM, pursue the provincial and federal governments, but you could build a critical mass around that. A few years ago, I took 4 communities to meet with the minister, right? Got them an audience with the minister and just said, lay your case out, you've done all of this. What do you get for it, right? And what they got back is, and I said, don't get your hopes up. They're going to rub your head and send you away, and they did. But the thing was, it was a start, and you have to start somewhere. And the next time, you could have a group of 20 communities going forward, saying, look, this is the only way we can make this work, because it can't be recovered through rates and taxes. It just is not possible. Not at 40%. And we're a very high tax province.
Okay, Michael, I'm gonna have to put the kibosh any more discussion. We have a public hearing at 7 o'clock, so I think we might need some more seating arrangements. So we'll just thank you once again, and 2-minute break, and we'll go to the public hearing.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
So you're gonna get back?
It's a 4-hour drive. Race the whole way.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, because it's dangerous. And then exactly. Thank you. How long did it do? Yeah, that was great.
Off and on.
Oh, how long?
Oh, Mike.
Yeah.
Good. You?
Too much change in my life. Crazy.
I don't know.
Big place, crazy. I know, I walked in Toronto, downtown, no wonder I go, oh my God, I can't know. But I'm tough, like it up. Like Kelly. Hey, what is all this? Too many things on it. Tired.
We had a discussion.
Yeah, like too many big things. One big thing at a time. All I can cope with, I got anxiety right now.
You don't need it. Oh, your summer.
Yeah.
We got 2 more kids.
Well, I didn't have a bathroom renovation.
Where do we go in Cameron?
After summer. Yeah, how was it? I was around a lot, it was awesome, you know, I don't need to really go anywhere in the summer, I love Rossum. Went back to work with Images, went camping, overnight for a night or 2, and yeah, other than that, mountain bike riding and hanging out. Adding up all the mosquitoes. Down before the snow blood. And who's on the plow? Now the bird's not there.
Where would we put them even if we had more?
Yeah.
During budget talks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Public hearing.
Holy moly.
Well,
They're gonna happen in place. What do you say?
Well, no, it's fine there, but I mean, no, it's fine. Wait for Walt to get here, and then we can get going here, because then people come to be gone every minute.
Oh, it's a public hearing.
Well, maybe not.
Where am I now?
Well, you got the right person right next to you.
Both of them? There it is, public hearing. That's got some kind of weird font. That's, yeah.
Okay,
Now that I'm on the app, like if I want to mark up, watch, just so I sense that it's deal with you guys. Watch how I mark up and have, oh, it's not gonna do it now, right? Oh, it's not gonna do it on this one. But it just.
Okay.
It flashes everywhere. This is
That's where you
fine.
go.
That's good, but I'll still here.
Timothy.
Here.
Cecilia, you're ready to roll?
Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Okay, I'd like to call this public hearing to order, and please, if I can have everybody's attention, I know it's a nice time to make noise. Anyway, this is a public hearing, first of all. This public hearing is being convened pursuant to Section 890 of the Local Government Act in order to consider proposed bylaw 2547, zoning amendment bylaw to rezone properties legally described as Parcel B, Block 2, Plan NEP 616, Township 9A, PID 028-828-097 on Thompson Avenue, and Parcel A, Block 2, Plan NEP 616, Township 9A, PID 028-828-089, at 1541 Cook Avenue, all located on the former Cook Avenue School site to allow for CD6 Cook Avenue mixed residential. At this public hearing, any person present who believes that their interest in property is affected by the proposed bylaw shall be given an opportunity to be heard on the matters contained in the proposed bylaw. However, it is important that all who speak at this meeting restrict their remarks to matters contained in the bylaw, and it is my responsibility as chair of this meeting to ensure that all remarks are so restricted. Those of you who wish to speak concerning this proposed bylaw should, at the appropriate time, commence your address to council by clearly stating your name and address. Then you may give us the benefit of your views concerning the proposed bylaw. Members of council may, if they so wish, ask questions of you following your presentation. However, the main function of council members this evening is to listen to the views of the public. It is not the function of council at this public hearing to debate the merits of the proposed bylaw with individual citizens. Everyone who deems their interest in property to be affected shall be given the opportunity to be heard at this meeting. No one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making their views known. After this public hearing has concluded, the council may, without further notice, give whatever effect council believes proper to the representations made at this hearing. During the course of a public hearing, people sometimes tend to become too enthusiastic or emotional. Regardless of whether you favor or oppose any particular application or argument, please refrain from applause or other expressions of emotion. Restraint enables others whose views may or may not coincide with your own to exercise their right to express their views, and enable all views expressed to be heard in as impartial a forum as possible. Ms. Anuevo, please.
Your Worship, the notice was published in the September 12th and 19th, 2013 edition of the Rawson News, posted on the City Bulletin Board and website since September 12th, 2013, and staff has mailed all owners and residents within 100 meters of the proposed rezoning with notice of the proposed bylaw as required by the City Bylaw and the Local Government Act. The City has received 2 written submissions regarding this application.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone in the gallery that wishes to address this bylaw? If so, please come forward, or if you're back there, you can probably just speak from there. That'd be fine. That'd be fine. And state your name and your address for us.
My name is Orman Jobin, and I live with my partner Kimberly Joynes at 1638 Thompson Avenue. This project should not move forward under its current plan for a multitude of reasons. As residents that would be directly affected, we have much at stake here, so our concerns must not be taken lightly by you or elected officials. If this zoning bylaw is passed, this could be the biggest single housing development disaster Rawson has ever seen. We only have one chance to get it right. I still believe any development should follow with the surrounding fit of our neighborhood, with 8 family homes on the big lot and 1 on the small lot, for total of 9, not 28 potential proposed units in this bylaw. This is not Vancouver. We don't need a massive eyesore in the city of Roslyn. We have many empty and unsold lots in town to build on. The OCP is just a guide. We don't have an urban space issue like Vancouver or Calgary. If you want high-density housing, please do it at the ski hill and not in the heart of Roslyn. This project can only help to devalue our homes and empty lots around town. At one point in Roslyn's great history, we had double the current population on less than the current city footprint. So the argument of needing high-density housing and fighting urban sprawl to increase our population is a myth. I personally know many families that have moved here recently, and not one of them would buy into a development like this. This project will not attract any new residents to Roslyn. The perception of affordable and the need for density is nothing but a guise this developer is hiding behind. Access points, whatever housing we do end up with must only be accessible from 2 points on Cook Ave for the safety of our community as proposed by our very own city planning staff. Every other multi-home development in Roslyn has this type of single access. Why is this not being addressed in the bylaw? Even the independent study from ISL agreed on this from a safety standpoint. See 5.0 conclusions from their report. If you let this happen off of Thompson, you're saying that the safety of our children does not matter. How can you say safety doesn't matter? Grade. Of great concern is that the existing grade must not change under any circumstances. Whatever housing we end up with must flow and blend in with our surrounding neighborhood. Bringing in massive amounts of fill will be a huge mistake. Please do not let our homes, devalue our homes and sell out our community for the sake of development. Height. We also must not change the existing bylaw regarding height. Currently, we have a 10-meter bylaw height restriction for our neighborhood. Whatever is built must not be over 10 meters from existing grade. Changing the height restriction and adding fill will do much harm to our neighborhood. Multi-dwelling units can and have been built in town with the 10-meter height restriction. Please consider the needs of the many taxpaying citizens over the wants of one developer. I'm very concerned that if this proposal is passed, we will have very little recourse to deal with the potential nightmare of living next to a construction zone for years to come, and that City Hall will all but abandon the local residents' concerns. The good neighbor bylaw is a joke with no teeth. After an earlier incident of dumping dozens of truckloads of fill on a weekend, my partner called City Hall and spoke directly with the city administrator to notify them of these ongoings. She was told that a permit is needed to move that much fill, and none was issued. Seemingly no action was taken against the developer or the trucking company involved. Is this the lack of action we can expect from the city? Even worse, at a later council meeting I was in attendance for, when this issue was brought up from a city councillor to staff, the same city administrator denied anyone had called to complain, leaving us both very upset. We saw what residents in Pinewood went through with the disastrous Evergreen Ridge project. City Hall has clearly abandoned them. As a taxpaying citizen, I'm very concerned that procedure may have not been followed during this process, and leaving the city itself open to possible litigation. We need to look no further than the city of Mammoth Lakes to see what happens when a city administrator oversteps their boundaries. Thank you for your time. I do have a few questions. We live at the low point of this property. Who will be responsible if our property is swamped with mud and storm water?
I don't think the purpose of this meeting isn't to debate those questions. You can ask those questions, that's fine, but we can't deal with those at this time.
No, I'm just asking the questions.
This is a
And I would
public,
like your-
this is a public hearing.
Yes.
And as I said in my spiel, I want to hear everyone's point of view, but it is not a question and answer session. It is not, sir.
Okay, another question I have is a bond being posted, and how much by this developer? Another question I have is, why did we hire ISL for this study and use our tax dollars when we had a highly qualified city planner?
Again, this is not a question and answer.
And who hired ISL? Knowing that the Jason Ward affair has not settled,
Sir,
and there's
please,
a cloud,
speak to the bylaw,
there's a cloud over, this pertains to the bylaw.
No, it doesn't.
There's a cloud over City Hall right now. I ask that City Council put off this decision until election 2014.
Thank you for your presentation. Can we have
Thank you.
that? Can we have that, Clerk Buck?
No, I'll send something.
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak to the bylaw, please come forward and state your name. Yeah, please. Yeah,
My
you're
name's
good
Tyler
there.
Manager, I live at 1533 Manita Street. I have similar concerns to what Orman just stated. To be, to sort of back up what he was saying, I think that this development as it's proposed and with the zoning bylaw in the way that it's proposed to be changed right now, I have 4 major concerns with it. The access and egress that is presumably being ignored from the independent engineer study as a safe way to make our neighborhood street, the Thompson Avenue, which is a feeder street. If we were to put an entrance on that side of the road, I think that would further exacerbate an already dangerous street. The city bus, when that thing goes by our house, you should hear it roar down Thompson Avenue. To have one or 2 or even one avenue in and out of this development onto Thompson Avenue on the Thompson Avenue side, with higher speed moving traffic and the city bus moving up and down there, I think would be a huge hazard and a big mistake. I similarly agree with the height restriction. When I heard that the proposed height restriction for the new zoning bylaw, it's absolutely absurd. If you sit there and imagine the height at which you're talking about allowing in this development, it is totally uncharacteristic with any of the surrounding area. I'm unsure. I've been very busy. I wish I had more time to do my homework, admittedly. But I'm concerned that the proposed design of the individual dwellings is very boxy and not at all in any sort of architectural taste suiting the surrounding neighborhood. As a business owner on Main Street, I'm very aware that we have boards and the historical artistic council or whatever have you that mandate things that go on Main Street that dictate that our Main Street remains looking characteristic of Rosslyn. I think that the same forethought should be put into the actual design characteristic of the building, so that we have something that is aesthetically pleasing to not just the neighbors, but everyone that passes through the neighborhood, and something that fits with the general aesthetic of the entire neighborhood. Just to go back to the height thing, I think that it's important that we establish a firm height that is in keeping with, I don't see why we have to change the height restriction. If it has to be changed a little bit, that's fine, but the figures that I heard are just, a staggering change from the current height restriction, which I have no idea why you would possibly even allow that. And even so, once the height restriction is settled upon, I think that height restriction has to be, taken from ground zero as the land lies right now. You cannot pile dirt on top and then build on top of that and call it the same height. That we live on a mountainside. You can't build up the mountain even more and then build something to the measure of whatever you're allowed to do on top of that. So I'd like that specified, and I'd like to know if there's any way that we can put a timetable on the construction Because the way these developments happen, you build a couple, you hope to sell, you build a few more, and, you know, I don't think that the residents in the area should be subjected to a potential decade of potential construction down there as the developer tries to, you know, make his money in a fashion that suits him. I think that the construction should be done in an effective and timely manner, and in a way to mitigate the obstruction and the noise and the effect on the surrounding community. And I think that it is, you know, City Council's responsibility to make sure that this doesn't become a permanent eyesore in our community and in our family. And you know, I know that there's been a lot of studies and a lot of talk about it and a lot of strong opinions, and it seems crazy to me that you know, an independent engineering study which recommended something is just ignored, and that would seem extremely negligent.
Great, thank you very much. Yes, please, come forward, state your name and your address. We don't have to come forward, that's impossible.
Sure. John Marion, 1543 Thompson Avenue. So my house directly looks upon the field, so directly impacted. Just 2 points. One is, I kind of walked around the neighborhood. There's about 10 to 12 houses surrounding this field, right? And my big point is, you want to increase the density 4 times that amount within half a block, and then increase the amount of traffic 4 times on top of that. And if we all go to work at 7 or 8, we're all leaving at the same point, and we all know that Thompson is a very busy street. We've had logging trucks through there before, and the way that it stands now, I just can't see how you can pack people in there like sardines at that amount of density. And then number 2 is, all those houses that surround this field have children, right? They all have children, and now you want to put 4 times the amount of traffic. I'm already concerned about how fast the traffic is on Thompson, and we did have barriers put down below to slow people down before, but now those are gone. So it's a free-for-all again for people speeding through Thompson. And as you know, it's quite a slope from the top of Thompson down. So they accelerate to the 4-way stop. So Tyler has children, I have children, there's young children around the corner. The Rossies are right there. It's just, you know, in the current way that it's looking, or the design, I just can't see how we can't put this off and look at alternatives that would be safer for the community and safer, you know, for the neighborhood. Because the way it looks now, it just looks like it's not a good fit for how many people you want to pack in that space. You know, I'm all for development, but you know, make an effort at understanding, you know, that there's only that many houses around there, and I just can't see it going through with its current plan. I mean, we can always decide. I mean, the field's been sitting there. Cook School sat there for a couple of years before we finally tore it down. So I don't know what the rush is. Okay, I just want the council to consider it.
Thank you very much. Anyone else, please? State your name and your address, please.
My name's Darren Rossi. I live at 1621 Cook Ave. I'm right beside this lot. I have a beautiful little daughter, and I don't want this development. I don't want that mass density of people. I don't want it to affect the amount of people on the road around my house. I don't want that height going up. I don't want to fill that and block my gorgeous view. I didn't move to Roslyn because I wanted to look at other people's houses. And nobody else has moved to Roslyn because they want to look at other people's houses. We want to look at mountains, we want to look at trees. That's why we all live here. I don't want to look at high-rise, a multi-class development. And I don't want to worry about my kid because there's 14 plus, 20 plus more people on that road. Cook Avenue, I know Thompson's fast, Cook Avenue's ignorant. I yell at people constantly, and I'm not an old bastard yet. Pardon my French. Those are my concerns.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that wishes to address the public hearing? Please.
Janice Anderson, 1580 Cook Avenue.
Thank you.
I'm opposed to more than the 2 accesses on Cook Avenue.
Thank you, John. Anyone else wishes to address the public hearing? Please come forward, state your name and your address, please.
Hi, my name is Cezarek Siazek, I'm development, I'm doing this development, I live on the Iron Court 28650. I answer all these questions, I'd be more than happy answering the question. What I have letter from Chamber of Commerce support this development. This development is according official community plan. This development can bring the job, development is good for the city. This is letter from Chamber of Commerce. I'd be more than happy. Next thing what you try to address, we received a letter about this public hearing, and this letter was sent everybody, and I don't know if everybody noticed the file number and date is on this. Date is 20/04/2011. That's this date when I applied for rezoning this Cook School. So it's 2.5 years ago. Previous owners did 5 years, so together was 7.5 years, and we basically don't do too much. Like I said, the letter from Chamber of Commerce is that this development is according to official community plan. I try to explain on the page 4, community plan, city vision for the future growth and development. We need more people, we need more development. Page 9, our future will depend on our resilience and our capacity for the constructive changes. When we need more people, bring more work, more people, more development, more taxes. We need more taxes, more revenue to the city if we want to pay less taxes. Page 19 of official community plan. 2007, city of Rossland had 3,508 people. Permanent population has decreased on average on 1.25% from 2003. That's official community plan. Page 21 is prediction, how we predict future growth for the Rossland. Prediction for 2012, according to the official community plan, is 4,623 people. I don't think so that we have today 4,623 people. Our high schools was closed because we have not enough kids. If we stay this way, this will be not good for everybody. Page 23 is about the project housing demand for Rossland. An official community plan calling for more housing, special, more different housing, not only single home. Single home are the most expensive houses. Not everybody can afford single home. So we need something different. We need duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes. Thanks to official community plan, every single lot on the lower Rossland, every single lot, I repeat, you can build duplex. That's what I'm doing now. I'm building duplex on Kootenai because thank you to official community plan. On every lot, you don't have to ask for any rezoning. You just go and build it. That's increased traffic. When we want to put the people in page 21, 2017, population over 5,000 people, that's what official community plan call for, will be increased traffic. Increased traffic doesn't mean disaster for the city. I live on the Iron Court. Iron Court is the shortest, I repeat, shortest street in the Rossland. When you're starting from Iron Court, you have big chunk of land, which is for 16-unit condominium. Already rezoning, already development, already water, sewer, cable, TV, everything. You can start build tomorrow. Next, you have 4 land for the duplexes. 2 built, 2 lots empty. Next, you have single homes. I live on the street My dog sleep on the middle of the street, no disaster. Kids playing, everything is fine. And this year, this is will be 2 more housing on Iron Cove. Page 31. I'm sorry, I think that I missed a couple of pages, but I make quick. Okay, page 23, call for mixed housing. Mixed housing, we need, Rossland to supply development, we need more housing, we need duplexes, we need triplexes, we need fourplexes, six. Page 23, project housing for Rossland. Somebody said that we have enough land in Rossland. We should not do anything, we have enough. Official community plan got different opinion. Having mixed form of housing is especially applicable, sorry my English, applicable to Rossland due to limited supply on developable, somebody maybe correct me, land and the topography. It's very hard to develop land in Rossland. I know because I'm building here. You have this way or this way. Only one flat piece of land is the Cook School, which we can build something. Page 31. Also calling for consider in this way, such as more density, more different house, more infill site, more development. That's what official community plan was create, bring more people to Rossland, bring more development. People complain that more development will be forever, will be noise. Noise is, we have law in the city. You cannot build midnight, night. You have law. You can do construction between 7 to 6, I believe. You cannot build night. You cannot build Sunday. We have law. Plus, development, create job, bring the food to the table. Cominco make the noise, which we should close the Cominco? I don't think so. Page 36, number 8, very important. We should protect the green space, and I try to read this English so everybody understands me. Encourage development to allow protection of the natural feature on the site to minimize to on-site footprint of the development and to minimize road land. That's the page 36, number 8. This is city planning department. Change the grass on the asphalt. Put a housing backyard towards the street. That's dangerous. We cannot do this because this is not follow official community plan. Change grass on the asphalt doesn't make sense. How does drain this? Where does this go? My proposition is, so what is my proposition? My proposition, we was concerned about the high. I understand. Before this was Cook School. Cook School was very high. Block the view. Who complained? This building will be not higher than Cook School. This will be much lower because start measurement is from land who is already. We're not going to bring any land and put this house above this land because this is crazy cost and will be not affordable housing. So basically, if somebody got a house, view will be above the roof because we have limit restriction, I believe, please correct me if I'm wrong, 12 meters. That's correct? It's 12 meters. So with 12 meters, we're starting from the ground. When we're talking about this 3-story building from between Thompson and Moneta, this only roof sticking. Understand, man? We have 10 feet, 10 feet, 10 feet and roof. That's what will be sticking from this big hole. Will be nothing. We're not very going to bring the nut and bring everything up. So that's next. Follow the rules. Page 43. it is important that there, we're talking about seniors, changing housing needs, keep our senior in town and attract our families. See, seniors in town, that's there. That would be 12 units here for the seniors. 12 buildings with that will be this in this hall with small access from driveway and with the garages. So when somebody coming, going to the garage, small driveway, not huge, 200 feet by 100 feet. These 12 units, which so increase the traffic, where planning department is worried about the increasing the traffic. We have school closed. That's decrease our traffic. We should be happy? I don't think so. That's give us only 4 driveway to Cook and 2 driveway to Thompson. Only. Not bring any field. So house from Thompson, because it's down, basement will be down. House on the Cook School going to the ground. If somebody wants to see how this looks, I strongly recommend it. Go on the go on the Kootenai and Washington. I'm building duplex. This duplex will be 90% similar, like 4 plexes coming from Cook School. Is going to the ground, same like on the Iron Core. Going to the ground, going low, garage is underground, 2-story going up. And we have this 12 meters by law. We have to meet 12 meters law. I cannot build 16 meters. That's against the law. We have law here. We have to follow law. We have official community plan. With couple years, we have to follow this. We cannot afford to close another school. We cannot afford to drop population and increase taxes. We have to do something to this city, so we bring young family and keep our citizens here. Now I can answer question was about high construction time we have law, construction noise we have law, and you can make noise where you don't make noise. Safety. I know that was concern last talking was concerned about people parking on the street. If we can parking on the, if it's not signed, no parking, you can park on the street. When you have signed no parking, you cannot park on the street. If there will be any concern about parking on the street, it's very simple. Put a sign, no parking, and enforce, done. Same like we don't have to close liquor store in Roseland because drinking and driving is dangerous. So I think that I have more, but I make long story short. Any question?
There's no questions and answers. Thank you. Anyone else wishes to address the public hearing? Anyone out there wishes to address the public hearing?
Sure.
Yeah, please.
My name's Johnny Coleshill. I live at 1646 Thompson Avenue. And I just, whatever, I'm neighbors with all these fellas that have spoken already, and I have a 1-year-old daughter and another one on the way as well, and we love our little neighborhood, and we know that, and it's, whatever, it's safe out on our street, and all of that kind of stuff. But I guess maybe to think of something in addition, the 4-way stop at Thompson and Davis is pretty busy already, and this would make it, you probably need a traffic light, in my opinion. It's pretty, people roll right through it as it is, you know, so that's one thing. And I don't know, I guess just thinking about this being a public forum, and the last time that I was here, and I wrote a letter to City Hall and just sort of expressed my opinion just with the neighborhood piece as my focus, and I didn't really hear anything back from anybody, so it's, I don't know, it makes me feel like the school public forum, you know, where there's 600 people and everybody's expressing themselves, but nobody listens, and it feels like that might be happening again, so.
That's our job, and that's why we have a public hearing.
Yeah, so hopefully it's listened to, I guess, you know, so.
Great, thank you. Anyone else that wishes to address the public hearing? For a second time, is there anyone else that wishes to address the public hearing? And for the third time, is there anyone else that wishes to address the public hearing? Seeing none, the public, oh, sorry?
I'd just maybe like to say something. My name is Stephen Doyle, 2786 Queen Street, formerly of 1708 Kootenai. I'm just coming into this guess, topic recently, and I don't have my homework here with me, but has there, and I guess this isn't a, I just maybe like to say to everybody too, to council, just because you can build something doesn't mean you should. Speaking to Cesari's theory that if you build it, people will come. That duplex that's being built on Kootenai right now has sat empty. Construction ceased on it for a number of months. And, you know, maybe we could look at this as a record of the builder to leave the subfloor exposed with snow on it for half the year. If the demand was there for these duplexes, you know, shouldn't construction be moving along quickly and being sold at a clip? I don't know. I'd just like to point that out. Maybe there should be an economic study of why people want to come to Roslyn and what they want to see before we go ahead and do the rezoning. You know, like see what people want and maybe let's throw this out there.
Great, thank you all. Thank you. Is there anyone else? This is the third call. Anyone else that wishes to address the public hearing? Seeing none, the public hearing is adjourned. So I'll give a couple minutes here if we want to move around before we start.
Are you doing it tonight?
It's on the agenda.
Which is so, yeah. So is it going to happen tonight?
It's up to council. But it would be, it will be adopted. It will not be adopted.
It won't be adopted?
No. Can't by law.
There is a staff recommendation to put it off.
Yeah, if you got a copy of the agenda, you might want to have a look at the agenda, because then you'll see what the recommendation.
Well, I was here on the August 20th, and the agenda wasn't followed. At 6:30 when it opened up, I was in the office waiting to come in, and then Cecile beckoned Cesare to come in, and we were sitting in the office, and all of a sudden we heard Cesare addressing council.
I don't think that wasn't a public hearing.
So, no, I know, but the agenda wasn't followed, so what I'm saying.
That might have been public
is that-
input.
That was
Where he was
That
spoken
wasn't
That was a
public.
committee of the whole meeting.
No,
We're
not
gonna
hearing. Public
debate
input
that.
is different.
We're
It's
not
right
gonna
at the
debate that.
beginning and
We've got to
anyone
move
can
on,
say
ladies
anything.
and gentlemen.
Different than a formal
You
public
see what's in the
hearing.
agenda, then you'll see the recommendations that staff have made of this.
Yeah.
And that's best I can tell you.
for online? On this table here, so we can pass others forward.
Okay.
Jim, why do we have, could you do me a favor, pass me one of a copy of the agenda?
I understand why,
Well,
but you gotta gather.
I know, but I've gotta do it one way, and I can't do it the other way.
No, because you can't go back in.
I have to do it this way. So anyway, welcome everybody. I'd like to call this regular meeting to order. First item on our agenda is, at regular council meetings, we have public input period, so if there's anyone that wishes to address council with a matter of urgency, please come forward. You have, excuse me, you have a couple minutes of our time. So if anyone wishes to address council at public input period. Cool. Okay, seeing none?
No.
You got the agenda? Sure.
Is anyone listening?
That's just for our recording and the video. We can hear you without that, please. So your name and your address, please, and
Right, it's Ray Van Den Nieuwenhof. I live on 2225 4th Avenue, Roslyn, on the corner of St. Paul Street and 4th Avenue. I'm not really too sure whether bylaw 255 has been adopted at this point. I'm looking at the minutes, and I think it is still discussing that bylaw.
which one's 255?
2557.
St. Paul.
The road closure? Okay.
Has it been adopted?
No, it has not been adopted.
Okay,
For
I wish to
adoption
speak,
is-
me and my neighbour Dr. Lamb wish to speak on this. Is that the procedure or what?
Just procedurally, we had a public...
There is a public input period, however, there is a public representation period further down on the agenda.
Yeah, right on, thank you for correcting me. So, if you can wait,
Yep.
because it is on the agenda, and thank
Okay.
you, Ms. Daniel, for that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Anyone else that wishes to address council public input period? Okay, seeing none, we need a motion to adopt the agenda with a couple of modifications. First of all, Ms. Daniel, we want to just speak to the amendment. I think we have it in front of us, but just the reason for it.
Your worship, through the council, there was an amendment made today to include the recess to in-camera and the adjournment, which was cut off from the original agenda that was sent out. And I'd also recommend amending the adoption of the agenda to include member reports.
Okay, with those two, I need a motion. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda with those two? Moved by...
Greg, I couldn't hear what those additions were.
One was to move one of the declassification items
No, to add.
to add, sorry, to
The
the...
recess to in-camera at the end of the meeting.
Okay,
And
the
to
one
add
that's
adjournment.
4A, are we looking at 4A?
15. We're looking at 15 and 16.
Well, it's not gonna help because...
Can you tell us their additions?
I can hear Greg best of anybody.
Okay, so we just moved the phone. For anybody's information, this is Councillor Morton. And, yeah, so Cynthia, please again.
So we've amended the agenda to include recess to in-camera at the end and adjournment, which was cut off
So we don't recess,
in that order.
we're going to in-camera right away, but then we have to go again, and then we have to get out.
Yes.
That's the simple thing. And members' reports, okay?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So, a motion moved by Spear and seconded by... Okay, thank you. Fisher, any discussion on the agenda? All in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. Some bad news. We have to recess to in-camera for a very brief couple of minutes. So, apologies, and that's...
So go outside and try the new street furniture.
There is a procedural reason that we have to do that, and I'm sorry.
No one can sit on it.
Everybody remember where your seat was.
You don't have to go too far away.
Oh, this is gonna be a long night. I have eaten dinner.
I didn't either.
Started at 12:30.
Broadband.
Oh, I started at 5 and
Pretty popular tuna sandwich.
Oh, good point.
That's it.
Yeah, I do understand.
Make it like the rest of that.
Do you want to stay there, or do you want to come?
But maybe they...
Okay, I mean...
This only takes a second, right?
I know, it's good.
Yeah. Why do we have to do it anyway?
Bad, don't ask why. We've got to go by the rules.
Large. My new swear word, because I can't swear around people anymore.
What is it, Farge?
Hard.
Okay, just don't scream, because there's people up there. All right, motion to adopt the in-camera moved by Fisher, seconded by Wallace. Discussion on the agenda. Okay, a motion on the declassification of information. I need two motions, that the portion of in-camera of the 9th pertaining to material be declassified, and that the portion of the in-camera meeting held on the 9th pertaining to considering social planning be released. Is there a mover to those two? Moved by Fisher, seconded by Spear. In discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. A motion now that we reconvene the regular meeting of council. Moved by Wall, seconded by Blooming. All in favor?
Yeah.
Carried. Okay.
Let him in.
Well,
You're talking about declassifying
Yes.
the island, you need to ask this one, right?
Did you declassify the Columbia Basin Trust?
No, we forgot to do that.
Oh, I'm reading the wrong, you know what, I got two freaking agendas.
We can do that next time.
Where is
You got
that
this one?
I got it now, I got it.
I got the in-camera.
Okay, so now, this is the most confusing
I know.
day of my life here,
Yeah,
so.
sorry.
But it is for all of us. So
No, I know it is, and I'm sorry, but I'm getting lost here.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So you're gonna declassify right now, you just need to declassify the
Planning.
non-renewal.
Yes.
And the camera pertaining to the social plan.
So we made those two motions,
Right.
right? So now we're,
Yeah, here.
Was declassified.
it was
in the
before,
previous
that's right,
meeting.
yes.
That's right.
So now we're recessing, I think we've done it,
Okay, now just,
yeah.
all right. When you declassify the items, you've got A, B, and C here.
That's when we go back to regular.
So when we go back,
Right, but you've also got to talk about the non-renewal of this director.
Just declassified.
just declassify it.
Yeah. So are you not gonna say it
In here?
in the regular meeting, that it's declassified?
Yes.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure, because there's nothing written on here, sorry.
No, but it's in there.
It's not
It's-
written on here because.
The name
it's
isn't
not
there because it
on
couldn't
the
go there
record.
because it was public. Ta-da. Okay, so now we have a motion. Is everybody happy? We have a
No.
motion to
Reconvene.
We've already done it.
reconvene, and it moved and seconded.
regular meeting.
Wallace and Mooney.
Okay, so now,
We can reconvene the regular.
go back to the regular meeting.
Yeah, and you're gonna
Okay.
declassify. Speak quick.
Yes. Okay.
All right?
So are you gonna read those out now, that what's been declassified?
When I get there, yeah.
Yeah.
We're not allowed to talk about it.
And then will we have an opportunity to say a couple words about?
Yeah.
Well, just clarification.
I think there's room back here for them.
You don't have anything.
Stand back there.
Am I gonna be able to talk about arena or anything? Nothing. Apparently.
Coffee, get water.
New age,
I don't need any more buzz right now.
Sometimes that'd be okay. Gunk.
That's smarter.
Oh, you get the priority, eh?
No, I sit here with the press.
Yeah, I know, you know you can't do that because you need everybody in the seat.
Stop building.
Go ahead.
How is the, new school?
Go ahead and sit down, please, and we can move along.
You want me to call him in, Mr. Mayor?
Hell, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
yeah,
I'm waiting for Mr. Blooming.
Yeah, it's okay.
I think there's room back.
The quality of the work, actually, my son's really good. Right, because it's tax. You ought to come up here. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they got to the end of the rope or the money or whatever, but should be fine. But I came in on the first day, there was no boards or anything up, right? And I went, so are they coming to mud and tape and do all this, right? Made this, from this little board looks at me, goes, so, this is like it. It was painted and bottom with crap, right? Cheap painted with plywood on the wall. And then it flooded the first day. No, the second day. The floor came right through my brand new classroom. I had to rip out all the molding on the bus. No cubbies, no sink. There's no drinkable water. I mean, is it satisfactory? No.
I cannot.
In my mind, it's just. And you know what the problem for me is that the tax board is the same night as we do, right? I need to go there and look. And find out what's the bottom line. I want to find out.
Be all right, right?
They should let it alone, because you know how many free times now, it's just migrate, right?
Okay. We gotta go.
So the numbers are.
Moving right along.
Grade 9 somewhere now.
This meeting, regular meeting has been reconvened. So we are on item 6 of the agenda, okay? Everybody got that? Declassification of items. First, I'll deal with them one at a time. A motion, do we need motions? I guess we do, eh? Because, yes, we need a motion that portion of the in-camera meeting of the 9th pertaining to tendering social planning exercise from an outside consultant be declassified from confidential to non-confidential. Moved by. Wallace, seconded by. Fisher, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Did you want to add something?
Your worship, it's just come to my attention that there were some members of the gallery who wanted to speak at the public input period, but there was a little bit of confusion between our public hearing and public input, and they missed it. So I'm just wondering if you wanted to relax a little bit and have another public input period, and maybe just keep it down to 10 minutes. It's your call, your worship.
How many are there?
Well, this is on broadband?
Is this on broadband?
It's public input.
All right, I'll allow it. I mean,
Thank you, your worship.
no, you're welcome. Please come forward, state your name, and I'm gonna limit it to 2 minutes. We have a large broadband contingent maybe.
Thank you for your indulgence and apologies for our incompetence. My name is Aaron Cosby. I'm here representing myself, although I am a member of the task force on broadband, as you know. I just want to say 3 quick points about the options you were presented in the request for decision tonight. Option B says that the city will commit 25% of the needed funding. And as the CAO points out in the request for council decision, this is about the same amount of money you would have to spend anyway if you don't get broadband to upgrade the phone and network systems. And that's already approved as part of the existing 5-year plan. So my first point is...
Can you speak up, Aaron?
Sorry. So my first point is that option B, in effect, is a 0 incremental investment in broadband. Option B also says that the rest of the money, that's roughly $120,000, has to be raised through grants and other fundraising initiatives. The task force on broadband has been diligently trying to find those kinds of opportunities for about a year now, and we have some pokers in the fire, but they don't amount to that much money, and some of them are long shots. So if you really want $120,000 in outside funding, my second point is that option B is pretty much a stop order on broadband in Roslyn. For my third point, let me back up just a minute and talk about what you've been presented for options. The CAO, CFO's job is to present you with a 0 risk option, and she's done that. That's her responsibility. Council's job, on the other hand, is to balance off those financial risks against broader considerations. The fact that businesses leave town, are leaving town, will leave town if they don't have high speed. The fact that new residents won't come to town if they can't get services. The fact that broadband cooperation among the regions saves money and can be a step toward regional cooperation. That's not the stuff that the CAO, CFO is mandated to tell you about. But it is your job to think about those things. It's your job to figure out how much risk you think is acceptable for the kind of benefits that broadband will bring. And let me quickly talk about those risks. The worst case scenario in the task force report is a catastrophe financially. But what exactly does it entail? The scenario is we get no money from any funds, no grants, and that 5% of the people along the line running up to the water tower actually subscribe. In other words, about 5 people of the 100 people available over a 15-year period where you've got 100 megabits up and down speed, download a movie in 3 minutes, offered at the same price you can currently get from TELUS or Shaw. 5 of those 100 people actually sign up for that over a 15-year period, and no outside funding. So that's not presented to you as a likely option or a real option. It is the worst case scenario. It's exactly that. It's a disaster. It's part of your decision-making process, but it is not a likely option. The medium scenario, I'm going quickly as I can, is that the uptake of those 100 people is more like 25 people, right? This is still pretty conservative when you think about what you're talking about here. But under these circumstances, under the conservative assumptions based there, and assuming that that 40K is money that you already had to spend anyway, if you choose option B, you're saying the city's not willing to invest in anything that would mean more than that would mean more than a $9,000 per year revenue in savings over the 5-year period alone. I'll back up and say that again. Option B, if you ignore that $40,000, returns to the city $9,000 per year in savings and revenue over and above the loan payments. Net benefit to the city, and has a 15-year payback of $150,000. Okay? So you're not willing to invest anything in a scenario like that. Under the same assumptions, if you choose option A, you're saying the city is willing to invest just over $71,000. I'm subtracting the 40 again. And a venture that has about a 6.3-year payback, annual net cost over 5 years, over 15 years, of less than $3,000, and a present value over 15 years of about $90,000. So my third and final point is that while option A involves more than the 0 financial risk, because council is authorizing the money should be spent, the actual risks are very low, and the benefits are very high. We're talking here about less money than council authorized for street furniture, for God's sake. But the benefits that would come to this town, and I won't speak to those, I'll let other people speak to them, as a result of that kind of investment, are huge. And to finish up, I should say, I'm not arguing this out of any vested interest, because where I live, I'm going to be the last person in town to get it, along with Councillor Thatcher and Councillor Moore in the boonies. I believe that this is good for Roslyn as a town. Thank you.
Thank you. And That was substantially more than 2 minutes.
Sorry.
And we have please, we have an agenda that's gonna take us into the wee hours if we don't move forward, so please be brief. Yes.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and again, having served on the task force, I feel that I need to echo Aaron's sentiments, and I think draw to light in more of a reality sense. There are, as we pointed out, businesses in town who are currently looking at rental space. One of the requirements is broadband. And I don't want this to come off sounding blackmailish or threatish. It's reality. They are going to go to Trail or wherever else they can get broadband. They will not stay here in Rossland. This broadband is very serious. When we talk about return on investment, we're talking 8 to 10 people who would be staying in Rossland that otherwise are going to leave. And if you, again, calculate out the amount of commerce that they'll be spending, whether it's buying food and all that kind of good stuff, again, that is return on investment. My concern with the 25% is essentially the task force, as business people, were asked to propose a viable scenario that provided a good return on investment. And again, understanding that a zero-risk scenario is always pleasant to look at, but does it always provide the best return? My concern with the 25% is it actually binds our hands as a task force. Our capacity, we're quite confident in the $50,000 with CITIC, but above and beyond that, for us to raise those funds are unlikely to be done within the next year and a half, which puts us in a very delicate position. We're losing our competitive advantage to the rest of the basin, and I think it's important to point out that this task force is finite. Really our role should be taking this broadband with Plan A, rolling it. You've got the expertise here, you've got the support from the CBBC. Use us to roll this plan out, engage the businesses, prove the business case, and expand. If you do this to us with 25%, we're going to be selling cookies or whatever we need to do to try and raise money, and you're going to burn us out. And you know what will happen? Nothing. And that, in my opinion, will just be devastating. And I'll have to use it as a case study in my next broadband conference coming up in Nebraska, and I have a name for it, and you won't like it. Anyway, that's the truth. There's my minute. I don't know if anyone else wants to speak to it, but please be diligent about considering the planning.
Okay, thank you.
I'll just speak very quickly from back here.
Yes,
Sue
please.
Ridley, 2241 Davis Street, Rossland, whatever you need to know. Very quickly, I'm not a numbers person. I don't know all the ins and outs, but I've read as much as I can from Amber and Aaron, and it's fantastic. And I know there's one thing that I wrote an email to council. I work in the telecom industry. I hear from the people on the ground. I train TELUS, I train Bell, Wind, Videotron. People on the ground say that these telecom companies are cutting costs all the time. They are not interested. TELUS is not interested in bringing fiber up here, high-speed fiber. And this is what I put in my email, so I think all of you got my email, so hopefully you read it.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Just a couple of minutes. I'm Brian Fry. I work for Rackforce. We are, not trying to brag here, Canada's largest cloud service provider. We have our fingers on state-of-the-art technology. I will say to Rossland that we will make every effort to make sure with broadband we have the latest technology. We take advantage of what's coming down the pipe. I'm not talking about Rackforce selling the services, I'm talking about making sure you have access to it. We have our fingers on all the latest technology. We're getting respect across the country, and I'm standing here in Rossland begging for broadband, when we're dealing with massive amounts of broadband coming into my company. I'm just hoping that at this point in time, credibility will stand, say something. What we were saying 10 years ago has come true. Today is a very important decision.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Yeah, just very quickly.
For your name and...
It's Kieran Gall. I'm with Big Red Cats up at Red Mountain, and broadband's super important. Just came back from Australia. They're doing a national broadband scheme, $45 billion to connect every single home in the country. That's how important they see it is. It's more important than any roads that we can build. It's more important than probably any other piece of infrastructure, and the cost is very small. So the risk is very low, but the benefits are huge. So I think it's really important that we look at this investment carefully and look at how we can do it. So.
Okay, thank you. And in this extended public input period, yes, please.
Can I?
Yes, you may.
I'll be less than 2 minutes. You know I talk very fast.
Yeah, I know.
My name is Andy. Yeah, my name is not Andy. My name is Andy. Yeah, I work for the Kootenai Association for Science and Technology, and as in the spirit of full disclosure, my house is at 2214 Columbia Avenue. I'm fully on the proposed Route C. I represent 2 potential clients, one business and one residential. I would like to point out that this is current day infrastructure development. This is absolutely crucial for the case that we make as an organization to recruit people to live here, raise their family here, and actually work here in the knowledge-based industries that they work in now. We can't make a case for living, work, and start your business in Roslyn without this. As an organization, we had a small period of shame the last couple of weeks. We tried to upload everything from our ancient server onto Dropbox. We lost it all. It was all deleted. I had 3 years of project files deleted. Would you like to know why? My fiber, my connection. It wasn't sufficient to load everything to Dropbox. It timed out and deleted itself. We are a science and technology organization. It's a catastrophe. It's not the kind of thing that I can stand up and say, here, this is a place you can work, because we are impacting our ability to make a living.
Great, thank you. All right, anyone else, please?
Hi.
Seriously, I'm gonna have to be fast, seriously, because
I'll be very
you
fast.
know, if there's some new information that someone has, I'd be pleased to let you ramble a bit, but if this is just to reaffirm what we've heard, please do so quickly. Thank you.
This might be another case. My name's Erin Guy. I'm the coordinator for the Neighborhood of Learning Committee. On Monday, September the 16th, the 7th Summit Center for Learning opened to 30 new students. These are learners who take part in publicly funded education program that relies heavily on an online component in order to connect them to the content and collaboration tools they need to actively participate in their studies. Within 30 minutes of everyone getting online, it was glaringly clear that our internet capacity wasn't up to par. What we've had to do is have a whole other line installed, since none of the current providers, TELUS or Shaw, are able to provide our students with the connection speeds that they need in order to participate in their studies. All I really want to say about that is that we need to start somewhere, so it'd be great to see if we could get that moving tonight. Thank you.
Yes, please. Do you want to speak? No? There was a gentleman behind you, sorry.
Yeah, I can say that, just briefly, that I'm a new Roslander. Sorry, Kelly St. John, 2167 Washington Street.
Thank you, Kelly.
I'm a new Roslander, and one of the hot button issues that I had when I was choosing a town to live in BC was the internet speed. Fortunately, I did some research on where I'm located. I am very fortunate that I have adequate internet for now, but for what I would like to do in the future, I don't see that it is sufficient, and I see that this broadband initiative is a carrying step towards that.
Okay, thank you. Yes, please.
Speak really briefly. I'm Jim Firstbrook, the CEO of Hotstream and a Roslyn resident. I just want to speak about this as I see it as a business certainty issue. I think for businesses like mine or any, we need to see that the town is behind broadband infrastructure so that we can plan as a business to be here and create jobs here and have broadband both for our people who work at home as well as for any office that we set up.
Thank you. Anyone else? Same drill.
Hi, my name's Kaylee, and I just wanted to say that if we really need broadband to invite all of the talented, creative people and their families to move here to support the tax base so that we can continue to afford all the great services that we have now. We really do need to boost our economy, and this is a real great opportunity to do that. I know the street furniture has already gotten a lot of attention. 100,000's there, you know, it would be great if we could just get some more bums to sit in the seats in the street furniture downtown by attracting more people to bring their business here. I think having this world-class amenity of broadband internet is the main thing that's going to keep us competitive and create jobs for young people, for old people, for everybody.
Thank you. And your last name, Kaylee, please, if you don't mind.
Mulholland.
Mulholland, thank you.
Sean Murphy, 1830 Phoenix Avenue. I think in this day and age, I think this is a no-brainer. I'm not the most highly educated person, but this seems like a pretty simple decision. And for Awesome goes no on this, I think it's going to be horrible. And it doesn't take a lot of brains to see that.
Thank you, Sean. Anyone else? Can't believe it. Okay, we're going to get back to where we were. All right? Thank you. Thank you. We just moved and passed 6A, did we not? Yes, all right, so 6B, that the portion of the in-camera meeting held on the 9th pertaining to nominees for representatives of the Columbia Basin Trust Community Funds Committee be declassified from confidential to non-confidential. Moved by Wallace, seconded by Fisher. Discussion, just so everyone knows, our nominee is Jim Green. Okay, everyone remembers. Did we vote on that? All in favor? Sorry, opposed, carried. 6C, that the portion of the in-camera meeting held on the 23rd pertaining to Community Charter Section 91CK be declassified from confidential to non-confidential. Mover to that. Moved by Councillor Spear, seconded by Councillor Wallace. Discussion? It's all mine. That's for everyone here, that section is labor relations, and council has decided not to renew the contract of the manager of planning. Yeah, sure.
So, yeah, this pertains, and this is where I just wanted to make a couple comments about the process and protocol of council when it comes to labor and contracts. And we have to do everything in camera. And unfortunately, when we make some hard decisions, which council just did in releasing or not renewing our manager of planners contract, and that's Mike Machuro, for all of you who know Mike. And we have to do that in camera. It has to be confidential, absolutely. And then, of course, the way that the person's job ends is never, I would say never, there's no easy way or good way to do that. And it's up to staff to craft how that looks and what's said and how that process goes. And I guess for me, just on a citizen's level and on a city councilor's level, it's very difficult when you know that hard decisions are made and you live in a small community and you're going to burn somebody somewhere along the line of doing this job, of which I'm in my 9th year, or 8th year anyway. And, you know, we had to, as a city, look at the hard financial realities of our staff, and we've restructured a few times in this building since I've been here. And it's never easy, it's never pleasant, and it shouldn't be personal. And unfortunately, you know, we live in a small community, as I said, and we all walk downtown and see each other and hopefully greet each other in a pleasant way. So I just like to say that it was a very difficult decision letting Mr. Machuro go, but at the same time, we had to look at the reality of what's going on in our community, and we had to kind of plan for the valleys with our staffing as opposed to what we hope is going to happen development-wise. And having two planners in the building where development is basically on this low grade at best, we had to make that decision, and I just wanted to make it clear that I think the word fired was out there. Mr. Machuro was not fired, his contract was not renewed for all of the reasons that I've stated and others as well, so I just wanted to make that clear.
Councillor Waltz.
Exactly, I appreciate Councillor Spear's words, and the main point that I think needs to be understood is that this was a difficult decision, and it was a decision of a position, not of a person. Recognizing that position really couldn't be warranted given the activity that was not happening within that department. So while I have the table, I would like to extend sincere thanks to Mr. Machuro for the contributions that he has made to this community. He has been a significant player in a number of pretty big projects that this community has taken on, and so really a sincere thank you. And you know, a difficult decision, but it's about a position. It is not about a person.
Thank you. Anything further on that motion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Public representation period. This is on the bylaw 2557, St. Paul Street Road Closure Bylaw. Public representation period for persons who consider they are affected by bylaw 2557, St. Paul Street Road Closure Bylaw. Anyone wish to speak to that? Yes, you do. Thank you.
Derek Lum. I'm at 2236 4th Avenue, just across the street from the area of the highway closure. that's relevant to the bylaw. I just have a number of concerns. I do acknowledge that this concern is related to the planned subdivision at that same property. My concerns primarily have to do with that of safety. I know that the highway closure is associated with a snow removal easement that seems to allow for a greater safety at that intersection. I will note that over a year ago, the owner did create 2 off-street parking spaces that would access his property from the north side of the lot. I do have some concerns about the off-street parking that he has created. There appears to be a utility pole in the middle of the driveway of that off-street parking. I do wonder if Fortis or TELUS would have some issues with that. This intersection at 4th and St. Paul also is one of those strange 5-way intersections we do have in our city. Exiting from his driveway, one may actually exit directly into the intersection. At this point, it's not always a concern, but it's becoming more of a concern given that, again, this intersection is under increased usage given our recent changes in our schools. Again, 4th and St. Paul, that's where everyone seems to be migrating over the past month. And these are concerns that I've had ever since I moved to that intersection. I live across the street in 2001. I think the city has acknowledged that this is an intersection of concern and of safety concern. I do appreciate this opportunity to present my concerns to the city, and would appreciate if you did relook this highway closure and how it affects the safety at the intersection.
Yes, thank you very much. Anyone else? Mr. Vanden Nieuwenhof.
Yeah, no, it rolls off the tongue, mate, but you got it right. Thanks for that. My name's Ray Vanden Nieuwenhof, 2225 4th Avenue, on the corner of St. Paul and 4th, and I echo and mirror what my neighbour across the neighbour has already stated about the safety issue, which is just a small part of this bylaw. Now, noticing that the original bylaw, before you press that send button and send it off, what procedure and guidelines were followed by formulating this bylaw, because it's come back rejected. So bylaw 2537, that's what bylaw 2557 takes the place of. So I'm wondering why you press that send button to send it off, and 21 bylaws and 14 months later, it's come back. So, can someone explain the guidelines and the procedure followed before? If that had been done, you wouldn't have had it rejected, but it has been rejected now, and you want to propose it again. So you're more or less double dipping on the same job. So I find it very concerning, being a ratepayer. I'm paying you guys to do this, and why the hell was it rejected? And is it a thing that I should be concerned with?
I would say no. There was a numbering error.
Yeah.
So the numbering error on the bylaw number, that was an error, so it had to be corrected, and we just can't change it on paper. You have to change it the legal way.
All right. Now, is there any cost involved with my neighbour Tim Manka, who lives in Bellingham? But is there any cost involved in resubmitting that bylaw and sending it off?
There would be the cost of sending it out, but it's minimal.
Could you just give me a figure, just a ballpark figure for that, just $10, $12? Because you had to put it in the paper as well.
I can't right off the top of my head, but we certainly give you that information.
Okay, because it's had to be resubmitted to the paper, so that's a cost in itself.
Yep.
Right, so there's got to be a $10, $12 figure, whatever.
I can't comment.
Okay. So that was one thing. But as my neighbour, Dr. Lamb stated, this is part of a greater problem. This snow removal on that site is part of a greater problem. Can I address that? Okay. Okay. I went to great lengths to try and formulate things to make it quite easy, but this snow removal on St. Paul is part of a bigger problem, okay, involving not only the vehicular traffic but pedestrians. And as Dr. Lamb has eloquently stated, it is now with the school closure. I have witnessed enough near misses outside my house on the corner of St. Paul Street and 4th Avenue, and am garnering support by way of a petition in order to get for an accident from occurring. So, I'm here tonight to ask the council to support my cause, okay? With the traffic flow warrants a traffic flow person of some description to recommend a dedicated school traffic crossing, okay, with a qualified traffic controller before and after school with the proper signage to make this into a people-friendly crossing, thus alleviating the need for mothers and their children to continually worry about theirs and their children's safety. Mothers have told me that this crossing is scary, even though the RCMP have had a patrol vehicle on the site maybe once or twice that I'm aware of, and only after mothers have phoned council with their complaints. I invite council and councillors to visit my place and to look out my kitchen window to confirm everything that I've said. I've had to go like this on several occasions, and it's a place waiting for an accident to happen, especially now that mothers have got to go two more blocks from 2nd Avenue up to 4th. And what happens when they get to 4th? There's a 5-way intersection. It's got 4 stoplights and a yield sign that no one abides by. I can stand on that corner, and I've got the petition here with the mothers that are concerned. Can I submit that? The petition?
I think you can submit all that.
All right, at a later date, okay.
Yeah, you can do that, and we will look into it for sure, but I think what we have to remember is we're talking about this bylaw.
Yeah, the bylaw, okay, and I'm concerned that it's been sent off again, it's been rejected, sent off again, and basically the ballpark figure that this guy's going to accomplish. He lives in Bellingham. He can't be here for this meeting, but I will raise that concern. I'll give him a ring and let him know if there is other cost involved.
Your worship, the cost would not be this is a clerical error.
Yeah,
The bylaw number is a clerical error, and it's not something that we would.
But I think that's fine, but there are some costs to the city, and I think that's what Mr. Renz.
Yeah, that's what I'm after,
And I
yeah,
think
yeah.
we can get to those, but we don't have them right now.
All right. Because basically this bylaw then allows this guy to subdivide, well, we don't live in Vancouver, but it allows him to subdivide on a very small lot, no bigger than what you see here, to put a house on that, and I think that's really, this bylaw really allows that to happen. He buys 3 metres, he buys 2 metres from the council for the snow easement, and has to give 3 metres back, so that the snow plough can dump all the snow onto St. Paul on his property. So, it just seems ludicrous, really. But anyway, that's my submission. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak tonight.
No worries, you're very welcome. Anyone else that wish to speak to council on this public representation period? Okay, seeing none, moving right along. A motion that the adoption of the minutes. Is there a mover that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on the 9th of 2013 be adopted? Moved by Councillor Spearn, seconded by Councillor Fisher. Discussion on those minutes. Waltz.
If I can just ask for a correction in the members' reports. Under my name, I was speaking about the Environmental Services Committee of the Regional District. It's written as the East End. So it's the Environmental Services Committee that made a decision regarding the East End service of garbage collection. So, thank you, just for that.
Okay, anything else on the minutes of the night? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, motion is carried. Motion that the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting on September 9th, 2013 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Wallace, seconded by Councillor Fisher. Discussion on those minutes. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. We have no petitions and delegations, which we might have had a delegation. We could have maybe booked some more time for it. Unfinished business. A request for a decision on Roslyn Broadband Project. Broadband Task Force is a motion that council resolve to enter into full permanent agreements with Fortis immediately. And further, the council resolves to proceed with the recommendations. Bill plan option 3 is recommended by the Roslyn Broadband Task Force, subject to the receipt of 75% of the funds being acquired through the grants. And further that, council authorized staff to bring forward a bylaw authorizing the borrowing of up to $41,000 with a 5-year term. That is what we have in front of us. Is there a mover to that, or is there a mover to some other? Councillor Blooming.
I'd like to make a different motion.
Yes, just a minute, Councillor Blooming.
I'd like to make a motion that we follow option A
with all due respect, of course, to the council, to the staff report.
Okay,
I'll
what-
second that.
Okay, what's option A, please?
That council resolves to enter into the pole permit agreement with Fortis immediately, and further, that council resolves to proceed with recommended build plan option 3 as recommended by the Roslyn Broadband Task Force, subject to the receipt of minimum grants of $50,000, and further, that council authorizes staff to bring forward a bylaw authorizing the borrowing of up to $112,000 with a 5-year term.
Okay, moved by Blumey, seconded by Councillor Moore. Any discussion? Councillor.
I'll start with an example. A few weeks ago, I had a video conference with people from Toronto, Britain, and then just a few scattered throughout the state. And, these were important people to me in my business that I had never met before. And, it was first impression time, right? So we had a test call just a couple days before the real conference call. And the others, they came and went within a minute. And my test took about a half hour, just because we were trying to work up the kinks. And, the picture was choppy and sound was not matching with the picture, and both sound and picture kept going in and out. And, it was just bad and it was embarrassing. This call was going to be recorded for audience playback, so quality was really important. And, essentially I was the weakest link. And, I just felt like there was little else that I could have done to make a worse first impression. It was, not to mention, it was also just a really big waste of time for the moderator. So the day of the real thing, it wasn't quite this bad, but, it still wasn't good. So, the professional quality communications, it really is the expectation right now and the norm. And so our colleagues in, business world, professional world, and education world, they are expecting good quality communications from us. And they don't know that we're in a small town far, far away, and, they don't need to know, right? This project, it's not just about internet, though. It's more about the fiber network and the open access network, and then everything that can go on there after the fiber network is in there. What we haven't discussed in this report is that once all the city halls in the region are on this network, connected by this network, essentially it'll be like having all the city and town halls in one building and sharing services as one account. And so there are huge cost savings and improvement of services there, and efficiencies of service that we just haven't taken into account here. And then the open access network, I guess I just think that it's like a secondary downtown Main Street that we're building with storefronts of, business support services that Roslinders can either rent the storefronts and provide the service, or they can access services. And every storefront rental, I guess a portion of that goes to the city. So there is profit potential for the city, or revenue potential at least, and then obviously major advantages for business people here in town. And just as a perspective check, remember that last summer we put $6 million into a downtown rebuild, and there we didn't expect direct payback with, we didn't ask for return on investment timelines. And then here in this project, there is direct payback over 5 to 15 years or less, depending on the scenario, depending on what happens. But we're also creating something entirely new with entirely new benefits instead of just enhancing something that we already have access to. And of course, I'm not debating that, validity of what we decided. It's just a comparison. And so this project, with its short return on investment and increasing profit potential and similar indirect economic benefits as the downtown rebuild, actually costs roughly 2.5% the price of the downtown project. The property tax implications is, this city council allowed for broadband in the financial plan this year, and with that in it, we were still able to put forward a 0% tax increase. And so this council has since cut other expenditures in the financial plan, and we're entering into discussions next month to further organize and find even more ways to save money. And again, this project brings in potential savings, increased value, and profit sharing potential, as well as residual economic benefit. The timing of this project is perfect right now. We've got
CBBC. They're waiting in the wings to manage this project for us and support decisions and adoption and implementation. We've got a very motivated, knowledgeable, and talented task force who are very committed to Roslyn and who have been very diligently working on this for a year and a half already. They're very much on board and eager to commit to seeing that this project, succeeds through adoption and implementation. And then we also have the incumbents who have in the past few months raised their prices, decreased their service provision. We, more than ever, need to investigate alternatives in education. And internet dependency and reliance is at an all-time high and growing for businesses, but also just families. So last week at UVCM, I came across the opportunity to sit with the Minister of Technology, Innovation and Citizen Service. They were so enthused to talk to me about our project that they fit me in last minute. And they spoke with me for half an hour. And generally in these things, I didn't realize this until afterwards, but generally with these things, you get 15 minutes, and that's like 5 minutes of, everybody complains, and it's 5 minutes of readings, 5 minutes of the real talk, and then 5 minutes of the niceties to say goodbye. And yeah, we had full-on enthusiastic, fun conversation for a half hour, and it was really productive. They gave me tons of background on networks, I guess, in this region and the history of the area. They definitely support our moving ahead with the build. They offered that if I, wrote a letter to ask for the support, a letter of support, they would have offered it. They would have sent one, but time didn't allow for that, unfortunately. They were very familiar with the CBBC project. We also talked about potential grant opportunities, and there are some that we hadn't realized. They also said that they would be keen to, and this is very cool and important, is that if we build our Option 3 network, they would be keen to build onto our network and lead to the, connect the provincial buildings in town. So schools, ambulance, and, well, I didn't think about it until afterwards, but I guess the courthouse is provincial, right? Okay, well, I didn't think about that at the time, but the very cool thing about the ambulance is that that would go directly past the new Seven Summit School. So all they would have to do is just tap right into it. So that could be very beneficial. I'll continue this, I'll rekindle this conversation with them tomorrow and make sure that they don't forget that they said they would do that for us. I also spoke with the councillor from Coquitlam, and now Coquitlam built their own third-party provider, municipally run QNet network, and it's the one that's referred to in the Exchange magazine that I sent out to everyone, I think, the last UOW. And I just saw her name tag saying that she was from Coquitlam, and I was like, oh, you guys are the ones with the QNet, and that's all I had to say. She immediately dove in and volunteered all this information and enthusiasm about how wonderful a project that ended up being. And she said that they Council Coquitlam, gave this group of the network builders, Rick Adams and his board, $5 million to build and create the network. And then 5 years later, that $5 million was paid back. She said that they also have so many people and organizations who tell them how grateful they are to have access to the services, and it's really helped them out with efficiencies, and they now have, they get more for less, right? Let's see. Oh, she also took it upon herself to say at the end that telecoms made it quite difficult for them as they could when they started this project, and they suddenly took interest in them and making all kinds of promises and offers, and she warned me that this would likely happen here as we pursue this. However, I'm not too concerned with that as we could really, it could be a very mutually beneficial thing to put the CBC in with us and the telecoms, so it's not really a concern here, I don't think. So after much investigation, much talking, right, Your Worship? I personally feel confident in proceeding with the network build, and I'm very comfortable with the task force recommendation because I saw how much labor and thought went into it. And, why create a task force to investigate and ask them to work hundreds of hours, months on end for free, and then not take the recommendation to heart. Anyone who puts this much time and work into researching one issue will get to know it very well, and this is a particularly knowledgeable group of people with much concern for Roslyn.
I have to allow one to speak as proportion to how much work they've done, and you've done
Okay, thanks.
a lot of work. Councillor Moore, you seconded the motion.
I did, and I think Councillor Blumey made an excellent presentation about it. I don't have much to add. The only thing I would say is that I think from all we've heard in the reports and from citizens and local business people, broadband like this is becoming an essential infrastructure item, and I think we need to appreciate that. Also, just to sort of put it in perspective, last summer we spent about the same amount of money that we're talking about borrowing to put street furniture on our wonderful new downtown, and I think that was a good investment. But I think this is, a more significant investment, and we need to take that step. And the last thing I'll say is that if any of you were on this conference call, you would really want broadband, because it is horrible trying to do this by phone. So, anyway.
Whereabouts are you?
We'll support option A.
Whereabouts are you, Councillor?
I'm in Arizona.
Okay, that explains a bit of it. It's too dry down there. Sorry.
Yeah,
Councillor
maybe
Wallace.
that's it.
I'm just kidding, Councillor Wallace.
Okay, I fully support the motion that's put forward, and I agree. I mean, I've first off, thank you to the members of the task force. Thank you to Councillor Blumey and to all of the
Councillor
people
Wallace,
that have put
speak
in
up.
so much time.
Yes,
I'm trying.
Thank you.
So absolutely, I mean, that has contributed a huge amount of value to the community for us to have that task force do that work, put this information in front of council so that we can understand it. And, I'm not a techie. I mean, I use the internet, and I know when it's not working for me. And I know how frustrating it will be. And if your business is reliant on it, you need it. And this is the future, and we do have to grasp a hold of it. I want to, I completely agree with Mr. Cosby. It is staff's job to mitigate risk and to put forward recommendations that will mitigate risk. It is council's job to recognize whether taking the risk is the right thing for the community or not. And I think at this point it is. So what I'm leading into is the one piece of the motion that's on the table that I'm not really comfortable with, and I'd like feedback from the other councillors, is whether we want to put a subject to anything on this motion. Because currently we have subject to the receipt of a minimum of grants of $50,000. And I'm not saying don't go after grant funding, and I'm not saying that that we wouldn't welcome some grant funding, but
we need some grant funding.
well, I don't want to see the project stalled or delayed or not go forward because of that little rider that's sitting in the motion.
Okay, I'm just gonna get Councillor Blumey, because she is the expert, or put the most time into this. So what is the answer? I think that 50, was that CITIT or CITIT?
Yeah, that's the CITIC grant, and they've had our grant application for almost 2 months now, I think, maybe a little less, I'm not sure, but they've had it for that length of time, and they have the board meeting, the first board meeting since we submitted is tomorrow night, and the precedent has been set in that Trail has received this grant for the full amount, as well as Caslo, that we know of, and so we feel confident that we would get that. Yeah, so I don't know if amendment is necessary. I don't know. I wouldn't want to, at the same time, take that out and then have other councillors saying, no, it has to be in there, so I feel pretty confident we'll get it.
And I think if we could revisit this, certainly so, but I think the subject to, with that kind of confidence level, I think that subject to should stay, my opinion.
And we can revisit after.
Councillor Fisher.
Well, I actually think that the staff here is pretty creative, and I don't think they always come to us with the no loss scenario. I think that this one is pretty easy from my standpoint to support, but then you have to convince the other 1,200 people that have houses, or whatever the number is of people that have houses in town, that aren't on the pipeline, and that we're gonna go borrow some money. And this is a good debate to have. The justification of this is a great debate to have in town, so that up to maybe 25 businesses are going to take advantage of this, and they're going to prove that broadband is the way to go for Rosslyn, and we're going to add 350 new jobs, whatever the number is. I don't know what the number is, because I haven't actually seen anything that supports those numbers. I've seen some stuff, but not anything specifically. So that's what you're asking the politicians in a little town, the municipal politicians that get beat up in the street when they say, when the little old lady comes up to you and she says, I'm not on any pipe. Why do I have to pay for that person's business so that they can be on the pipe? What is the pipe? So now I have to explain that. And I still support it, but the way that it's presented, and the way that the comments made about it's a no-brainer. Well, if it was a no-brainer, we wouldn't even be having a discussion. It's not a no-brainer to me. It's public money, borrowed public money. Borrowed public money. And I think that it's definitely not a no-brainer. And again, I'm a guy that supports it, but it's the debate that needs to happen. And the fact that we asked for $50,000 in grants, I mean, I would think that there should be a caveat on saying $50,000 grants plus additional looking for grants, even though we might support it, so that we can pay it off early and look to build more if we're going to go and try to build the pipe out from where it's going. Because at the moment, you know, it's on one path. So I think it's very, it's you know, as I know that people only had so much time to speak to it, but that's why I'm facing the audience, is that it's way more complicated than just saying that it's a no-brainer and that the staff only presents a certain point of view. I don't think they do. And we've been talking about this for a while. We put it in the budget already, previously, because we knew it was coming up. It had been on the table, and we've had presentations. So from my point of view, it's something that is essential. It's infrastructure that we're going to be looking at down the road, but because it only affects a limited number of people and it's money that we have to borrow, it makes it a much more difficult decision than you think. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Spearn.
Thank you. Well, hard act to follow, all of you. Thank you. And I just want to also comment on the task force and Councillor Blumey and all of your dedication and your hard work, and you know, what a community to be proud of, right, as I sit here. We have some amazing people in this community who, I've said this before and people kind of look at me like, yeah, right, like shakers and movers, and you know, that's an old term, but you young people are the younger shakers and movers. So I'm in favor of this. I also agree with a number of the other comments around the table. What I do know, what excites me the most, however, is that this potentially could be a revenue generator for the city of Rossland, which we have been struggling with for decades, I'd say. And so if this can bring some kind of revenue stream into the city of Rossland, whether it's 5 years or 15 years, I think that's a really huge benefit for our community. All of the reasons that have been stated, I don't need to restate them. I think the value that it's going to bring to our community, whether it's people's businesses growing, and you know, when I hear Jim Fursbrook write, and you know, he had 2, and then he has 4, and then I'm on a bike ride and he says he has 10, and I'm going, wow, you know, like building business is a really huge part of what we want to do in Rossland for economic development. So I'm in favor of it. I really hope we get the grant, and I would say also that any other monies that you can try and come by, and the only thing I'd say to Councillor Blumey with speaking to ministers is you should have said to them, how much do you have? Because that is always the ultimate question when you're in at the UBCM, what do you have and how much? And usually they give you good advice, but you need to ask how much have you got. So anyway, yeah, I'm definitely going to vote in favor of this. I think the research has been done. The proof will be down the road, but we have to take risk, and if we don't take risk in this kind of high-tech infrastructure, I think we'd really be missing the pipe, so to speak. And you know, roads and sewer and all of that, earlier tonight, we had an asset management plan presented to us, and one of the things that he did say, the fellow that was here, what's his name? Michael. He said, borrowing and debt servicing hurts us as municipalities, so I sort of went, oh, we gotta borrow again, we're borrowing for the Columbia Avenue. But, you know, I feel confident that this is a really good investment of, community, asset, and that it's a green venture being fiber, and, yeah, so I don't need to say very much more. I'm happy to vote in favor of the option that has been presented.
Thank you very much, and I would just like to say for the record, you mentioned the asset management plan and the, we didn't use the word deficit, we used the word backlog of existing infrastructure that's gonna require money, and, part of his presentation showed that we should be budgeting approximately $2 million, $1.73 million a year for renewing what we already have. So I think everybody, when we get into our social planning sessions coming up very shortly, depending on this initiative, we are gonna have to make decisions that affect the asset management plan that we have in place. So this will be may become another asset that we'll have to have in our plan, just so everyone's aware of that. So, I don't think we need to beat this one up too much longer. I'll call the question on the motion, all in favor? Opposed? That's, yeah, it's carried. I was gonna get Councilor Moore, but you mentioned you're in favor, so. Motion's carried.
I'm in favor. How did the vote go?
Unanimous. Did you hear me?
No.
Unanimous.
Oh, unanimous. Very nice. Thank you.
You're welcome. Request for decision, this is item 11 on the recommendation for staff for decision that that council consider the comments made at the public hearing for bylaw 2547, that's Cook. Sorry? Oh, I know, well, so do I.
But they can get water. Can we share water? Do we have any water? Thank you. Oh, here. Thank you, Councilor. Okay, so are we making a decision? Didn't say it in there.
Oh, so I just, till I get a little bit of... Hey, Tim.
What's going on?
Nothing, we can't tell you, it's a secret.
We're emptying the barn.
Item 11, we're just waiting for people to leave. Item 11.
Oh, okay.
Motion that council consider the comments made during the public hearing for bylaw 2547, that's Cook. A bylaw to rezone properties legally described, there's a legal description, and all located in the former Cook Avenue School site to allow for CD6 Cook Avenue mixed residential, and further, that the city directs staff to follow up on the comments made during the public hearing with the report to council on October 15th. In other words, we will have to take into account everything that was said tonight, and then we've got in writing, and bring back a report for the 15th.
So moved.
Moved by Fisher, seconded by Spearn. Discussion?
No.
Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor? Opposed? That's 5 in favor, Councilor Moore.
Yep, I'm in favor.
Unanimous, thank you. Did you get that? Okay. 11B, request for decision, permissive tax exemptions, the 2014 allocation. The council approved the 2014 permissive tax exemption applications as presented. Mover to that, moved by Spearn, seconded by Fisher, thank you. Can I just ask a quick question before, maybe you have a question, Councilor?
No, I don't have a question.
Do you have any questions on that?
No.
Okay, I just want to ask the question on the school site.
Yeah.
Is that permissive tax is not on the resident, it's only on the portion of the school, correct?
Actually, if I could, Your Worship, what it is on the school and on the residential, and I spoke to Tracy Butler, and what it is this property was always zoned public institution. And there was always a residential component and
institutional.
Thank you. Component of it per BC assessment. So it was never flagged before because it was the parish hall. Now the new owners are saying it's still going to be public institution, because part of it is the school, the other part is going to be congregate housing. It's going to be a home for handicapped people. Therefore, that's why it's brought forward like that.
Okay, is everybody happy with that? Yeah,
Well,
go ahead.
how would it be? Her question, oh, sorry.
Okay, when I was reading the application, I thought that I had read that the new owners were going to be using it as their residence.
Yeah.
I think the intention is the owners would be living there as well. And I'm going to be very candid here and say that I would recommend that council considers doing the tax exemption on the Class 08 only at this time, and wait until we get further information and we go back to the owners and tell them that the next round for next year, if at that time it is in fact a congregate home and it qualifies, then council could consider it then. That would be my recommendation.
So what you're saying is take the, I don't have the chart in front of me, but take the...
$1,631
Yeah.
that pertains to the residential portion, we'll take that out.
Or what we can do as well, perhaps, is we could get clarification on that portion. We could pass the school portion here this evening.
That's right.
And get clarification on the other portion, just to see, because we seem to think it's congregative care or whatever that word is, but we
Well,
don't know.
my concern is, I'm going to be very candid, my concern is right now that there's a building permit out, there's work being done. So my understanding is it's not being used right now as a congregate home anyway, so I'm suggesting that we don't do the residential portion. If we get clarification and I'm wrong, then I would bring it back to
We can bring it
council, but
back.
I would need a special meeting, if that's the case.
Well, the exemption have to be done by the end of October, correct? October 31st, so, no, it's October 31st, I'm pretty sure.
All right, then we could bring it
We
forward.
can bring it back once we get clarification.
Right.
So what we could do this evening is take out the residential portion
That's right.
and leave the
Yeah,
other
right.
portion, right?
That's right.
Okay, so that's an amendment to the motion then, right?
Mhm.
You happy with that, Councillor Spearn?
Mhm.
Okay, and, yeah, okay. So on the amendment, sorry,
Well, I just want clarity. We are technically not allowed to give permits of tax exemption on a residence.
well,
So I just want to make
No.
sure
No, well,
that
that's
that's
why we
clear
have-
out there.
And
Okay,
if
that's
you
why
word
we are
it
discussing
right,
this.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
So that's, all right, so on the amendment to remove the residential portion, on that amendment, all in favor? Opposed, that motion is carried, so the main motion now is that we have that amendment, right? So I don't think we have to read it. What we're doing is we're moving the thing forward with the school portion permissive tax exemption. Okay, on that motion, all in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. Revitalization tax exemption, the council approved the 2014 revitalization tax exemption applications as presented. Is there a mover to that?
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Spearn, seconded by
Great, sleeping on
Councillor
your
Bloom.
So lazy.
Any discussion on the revitalization tax exemptions?
No, it was just the two
Okay,
things.
all in favor, yeah? All in favor, opposed, motion's carried. Contract for refuse collection, request to increase duty fees. Is there a motion that council extend Davy Sales and Service contract for solid waste collection until the January 31st of 2015? Moved by Wallace, seconded by Blooming. Discussion? Yes, please, Councillor.
Okay, so when I first read this, it bothered me a bit because the direction of the regional district, who has the responsibility for waste collection.
Jill, I can't hear you.
Not me.
Okay.
No, it's not me.
The regional district direction of the Environmental Services Committee for a number of years has been to go to zero waste, to go to user pay. So the suggestion here of putting it onto the rate rather than onto the usage portion, onto the bags, kind of goes in a different direction from what the regional direction is. But why I support it is because in this community we have a significant amount of abuse of our public garbage containers. And it's something that people need to realize that just because they're saving 75 cents, they're impacting the service that we're trying to provide. they are costing the service more than that 75 cents that they are saving. So for us to take this situation and try to fix it by raising the cost of the garbage bags is, in my opinion anyway, only going to encourage more abuse of the system, which is unfortunate, because by raising the rate on it, we are impacting that person who doesn't know what the pipe that doesn't go to her house is. We're impacting the people that are already on a fixed income, that are already in a tight situation in their home, that they want to stay in their home. That $8.25 is going to make a difference to them, and they're not generating any more waste. So it's a bit of a frustration that I have that some people seem to think that garbage should be free. And garbage is not free, and it never will be free. And we are gradually moving towards a situation in which the people who produce it and the people who consume it are the ones that become responsible for this expense. That's the direction of the regional district. That's the direction of the province. So anyway, I'm just kind of taking this opportunity to vent at my pet peeve a bit, because I've seen this happen in this community quite significantly. The number of people that take advantage of an open public garbage can downtown, to the point that sometimes our city crews can't keep up to emptying them. And I've seen them do it, and they're not driving, an old junker car. They're driving a new vehicle, and they're intentionally doing it every day. And it has an impact on other people. So anyway, I'm in favor of this, and it does line up very nicely with the solid waste management planning of the regional district, and the timing of which we will be handing over the recycling to the multi-material BC. So there you go. It's all good. I just needed to take that opportunity.
Well, thank you. The MMBC, multi-material BC, is quite contentious in this province, and at the UBCM it's going back for further discussions, because it's going to cost some people a lot of money. Councillor Spearn, you wanted to ask a question?
Yeah, it said retroactive too, so I was just wondering, I'm just trying to find it in my report that I've highlighted everything on, but what does it say about being retroactive to?
January 13th.
And how will we do the retroactive part of it? That was I was curious about.
Pardon me? Why would we? Is that your
Well,
question?
can someone help me here, please? It's retroactive to some date, July?
January 2013.
Yeah, so January, so we are almost October, so retroactive, what does that mean? Does that mean $8 more on everybody's garbage bill to date, or can I have clarification, please? What does it mean?
I can speak to it. It doesn't mean, if you look at the options to cover the retroactive pay,
yeah.
So what the Deputy CAO is recommending is that we do it retroactive to January 1, 2013. And what I'm suggesting to council is, in order to be able to do it retroactive to January 1, 2013, that we wait and do it during budget discussions to decide for sure how you want to do it. Because if you do it retroactive to 2013 and implement it now, it means an increase of from $84.25 to $92.50 per year per user, because you got to catch that up, right? But if you do it as part of your budget discussions and decide on your yard and garden cleanup, because one of the things that you mentioned when you were doing the budget discussions earlier on this year in May was maybe we don't do the yard and garden cleanup. So if you make that decision during the budget process, then you don't have to increase the fees so much. So it's not as huge of an impact on your ratepayers.
Thank you.
Okay, but just clarification.
Yeah.
I separated the motion. So the first part of the motion is that we extend Dave's contract until January 31st. So that's what, when we're talking about rate, I'm gonna ask for a motion next on that, okay? Because I thought that might be more of an issue than the contract itself. All right, so I'll just call the question on the extending the contract. Okay, all in favor of that? Okay, that motion's carried. So now, the motion that council increase the contractor rate from 50 to 58.25 retroactive to January 1, 2013. So Cecile, you want to please explain that to us again, what you just said?
Okay.
Yeah, so,
the deputy CAO was working with your contractor, and, the request apparently came in at some time earlier. And so the recommendation is that we actually pay the contractor retroactive to January 1st, 2013. And the reason that I'm suggesting to council, so right now the decision is we do retroactive, and then Councilor Span says, how do we do that?
Mm-hmm.
So you could look at saying, we would increase the fee right now, but you can't do a straight across $8.25 increase because you're doing retroactive. So you would have to increase it by more than that. So what I'm saying is, do the retroactive to January 1, and just do the, how you're gonna pay for it, discussion as part of your budget discussion.
oh, okay.
And do it for January 2014, because as part of your discussions, you're not only going to be looking at user rates and how to pay it, you're gonna be looking at service as well.
Okay, so,
Well, okay. And you'll be doing that next month, right? October?
so then, your recommendation, if I read that right, would be...
Well, I'm not recommending
No,
a
I know,
rate
but-
increase at this time until you budget it, until we discuss it.
So you're suggesting we wait till budget before we make any
Talk
changes?
about rate increases, yes.
Okay, so then,
So we need a recommendation to defer the decision on the increases to the contractor's rate from 50 to 58.25 to budget discussions.
No, if I could.
yes, please.
Be very clear.
Yeah.
The decision today is whether or not to do it retroactive. The decision on how to implement the revenue to collect the retroactive fee happens during the budget.
You're separating that.
So we're still saying that
Yeah, I
we're
see.
doing that, but how we're gonna pay for it is at budget discussions. Okay,
Can I ask a question?
yes,
What's the total amount that we would owe the contractor retroactively? I know it was $84.25 per house. What's the total amount?
well, 1,700 households roughly, do the math.
I don't have a calculator, I can't do
The
that.
retroactive to January 1, 2013, if you look at your backup there for option 3, is $7,942.
Okay, because I thought in our discussions of budget that we had, that when we were talking about the 2013 budget, we already agreed to delete the fall cleanup. So,
You agreed to talk about it.
We agreed to talk about it, I'm quite sure, but anyway, the fall cleanup is, that's all for budget discussions. What we're trying to do here is to say that, okay, it is retroactive to January 2013, now, where we get the revenue to pay the contractor from, we'll discuss that at budget.
And part of that discussion will be talking about deleting or not deleting the fall cleanup.
Well, that'll be normal.
I do remember we had this discussion before, and I appreciate what Councilor Wallace said, and I really agree with her 100%, but we had decided that we were going to ask staff to come back with a recommendation that was a tiny bit up on the bag price and a tiny bit up on the fee price to kind of mitigate that issue. I remember it's really weird. I remember having that discussion, and I thought we actually made a decision about it, but then I guess we said we'd put it off until the budget discussions for 2013, then it didn't come up.
That's my that's my recollection.
Is it?
And
Yeah.
staff's recollection as well.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
Because I would like to see us do that, put a little bit on more in the bag and a little bit more, not just put it all on the fee part.
Well, I think that's sort of what we're saying right now, is we'll figure out how we're gonna pay it out when we get to budget discussion, so, no?
That changes the issue, because the bag fee is selected
You're gonna have
at the
to,
store, so you can't decide today to go.
no, that's what I'm saying, we can't decide that today.
Can we do the budget?
I'm also suggesting, though, that your contract fee then changes, right?
So what we
So
need,
is there just a motion that says we agree to pay Davies retroactively to January 2013, and we'll figure out how to pay it later? Is that what we're talking about? I'm missing a lot of what.
the motion is that council increases the contractor rate from 50 to 58.25 retroactive to January 1, 2013. That's what's in your package.
Therefore, if council wishes to
Increase the
the
payment
bag,
to the contractor. How we pay for it, whether we do it by bag or by the fee, we'll determine later. Is that right?
No,
Well, you can explain to her that
Well,
it's different.
then it gets Cecile to come over here and talk to you directly.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really having a hard time hearing her.
You can't retroactively charge for the bags, basically.
that's right.
Yeah.
There you go.
But we can do that after.
Councillor Fisher just suggested,
can't.
you can't retroactively charge for the bags for the first 8 months, and if you want to increase the charge for the bags for the subsequent month,
Mhm.
then you can't increase it to 58.25, because now you're double paying them. Double charging.
Right. Well, I was thinking we were just talking about what we're going to pay Davies, not how we were going to pay him.
That is one.
Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but, excuse me, I think the confusion is because we can't do the retroactive bag thing, so...
Yeah, I guess we just need, there's just a number that we're going to pay to Davies retroactive to make up for the expense that he had
Yeah.
as per his contract. That can be renegotiated, and we figure that out, and then how we pay for it is a different conversation.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, good, all right, I'm on the same page.
Okay. On the motion, all in favor? Oh, sorry, I need a mover. That was a long discussion without a mover.
Wow.
Moved by Councillor Wallace. Oh, you did move it, didn't you?
I thought I moved something.
Seconded, yeah, it was moved by Wallace. Oh, that's right too, moved by Wallace, seconded by, I shouldn't have separated out Blumey. Okay, after all that, all in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, Councillor Moore.
Yeah, I'm in there.
Thank you. Request to waive the minor hall rental fees for the Friends of the Roslyn Range. Motion that council grants the request, in the amount of $223.20 for the Friends of the Roslyn Range to hold one workshop in October and one in November. Moved by
So moved.
Councillor Wallace, seconded by Councillor Spear. Any discussion, Councillor Wallace?
Well, you know, I appreciate the kind of the caution from staff about, you know, this continuing setting the precedent of waiving the miners' hall fee. But when I see that the work that the Friends of the Roslyn Range are doing in this instance, this is really community work that they're doing. And I think for that reason that it's, you know, the waiver of the fee is warranted.
Who seconded that, sorry?
Me.
Councillor Spear.
Yeah, I feel likewise, you know, we have had conversations about waiving, and then, you know, it adds up to a significant amount of money, but as Councillor Wallace said, this is a really huge community endeavor, and the group, has always worked hard to protect this area of, our outlying areas, and within the municipality, but anyway, yeah, I'm in favor for them to educate and carry on their plight.
Your Worship, I'm here just to answer questions.
No, thank you. Councillor Fisher.
There's got to be a way that we have a not-for-profit rate. We have why do we have a not-for-profit rate? Some Roslyn Range folks are worthy of the not-for-profit rate, and this group is not worthy of the not-for-profit. I won't vote in favor of it. I won't do it. I think that it's a great group, and that we have a ton of great groups. We either have a not-for-profit rate or we don't have one. Maybe they can, you know, I'm not lying when I say this, wash the floors, bring toilet paper, put something back into the miners' hall when they leave, if that's the case. I'm going to get outvoted, I know, on this, but the point is that there's, my kids volunteer for a ton of things, but we don't get a special rate all the time everywhere we go. We hardly ask for it. We pay for things. And different groups, you know, even the Girl Guides, you know, they sell cookies and they pay for the venues that they're at when they go do things. So I think that everyone else can too, at some level, and it's really not a debate for me. It just, I think would be, you know, you have a not-for-profit rate, and the not-for-profits get a really special rate, and they pay it. And
and then we go from there. Anyway, that's just my feeling on it. I just have I mean, this isn't sounding crass, but, you know, my kids are in Interact. All Sunday, they sat at home baking, because they're raising money to send some money to Honduras. And then they sell them at a place, and they got to pay for their little rooms and things that they do, so, I don't know. I'm not gonna support it. There.
Councillor Lynn.
I can't support this either, and it's just because we have to be consistent. I very much support, you know, I'm very grateful for Friends of the Roslyn Range, and this sounds like a really interesting meeting going on, or meetings, I guess. But we have to be consistent, and I guess, you know, same as that nonprofit rate, why if we're not gonna use it? And the report that was put together by the committee or task force that was put together to kind of analyze the miners' hall in operations, their recommendation was to not waive the fees ever. And so I just want to honor that recommendation, and I want to be consistent, and I also want to remind you guys that I'm pretty sure about this, although I may have to be corrected, but the last time this same kind of question came to us was from the Chamber of Commerce for the all candidate forum, and we said no to them, I'm pretty sure.
Yes,
I know I voted no for them anyway. And you know, it was, so we have to be consistent and fair, so I'm going to vote no.
Okay, Councillor Moore, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I will. I really support the Friends of the Roslyn Range as well, but one of the things that bothered me about it is, and I realize they're doing it for efficiency, but they're also including their AGM at this meeting, like doing the workshops to educate people about the recreation site is really good, and that's sort of beyond even what they do as a group. I mean, they're going above and beyond what they do as a group. But having their AGM there, I mean, there's plenty of volunteer groups that, you know, they have their AGMs at the library or they do whatever. They're not, I don't like the precedent of setting, that we'd be setting of, you know, allowing groups to come and use the miners' hall for AGM and not pay for it. But, you know, I was really torn about this one. But I have to side with the councillors that say we really can't be waiving fees for nonprofit groups because we do have a nonprofit rate. And this isn't an exceptional one, you know, it's not like we're helping someone who's injured or something like that, which may be more personal to a member of the community that might have more, anyway, I'm tired, so I'm not being very clear. But anyway, I'm going to vote against this.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to call the question. On the motion, and it is that council grants the request to waive the fees. The motion is to waive the fees. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Moore, you're opposed?
I am.
Motion is defeated. Information items. The motion to receive the information items and act on the recommendations within. Is there a mover to that? Moved by Fisher, seconded by Spearn. Thank you. Items. Anybody got anything you want to discuss?
Well,
And it's not to say how nice or how bad they are, but if there's something action we have to take on, that's...
Yeah.
C?
Yeah, well, see, there's some actions there.
Okay, anyone other? Okay, let's go with C.
Yep.
Okay, that's exactly why I mentioned C, because
Yes.
there's two recommendations sitting in there.
Thank you. So who's... Somebody fly at it.
Okay, well, I just have to find my notes.
I'm trying to find them.
Well,
Okay,
there's two recommendations.
Yeah, where are the recommendations? Can someone...
From the
Okay,
S-
I would ask a question.
All right, you go.
So the first recommendation that they've made is that council approves the reimbursement of travel expenses in the amount of $500 in order to send Fletcher and Terry, so that's to Victoria, to participate in the Royal Roads Leadership Challenge specific to the Innovative Education Task Force. I need an explanation about that.
Oh, I'll give you one.
Yeah, so let's.
Okay, so we had, and this is kind of part of my council report anyway, but, so the Sustainability Commission, we had our meeting, last week. And one of the initiatives is, it's quite exciting actually, this Royal Roads Initiative, and I'm just trying to find my notes on it, 'cause of course I don't have it when I need it, but anyway. So what it is it's the Royal Roads, the university, right? They are actually using Rossland as kind of a case study, and they're going to come up with some recommendations around this innovative education task force that is part of the Sustainability Commission. So they're going to make all these recommendations. They're using it, it's part of a course, and you've got, I don't know, 5 different individuals who are going to come up with recommendations to, that's why Terry Miller, chair, and Fletcher Quincy, who is now part of the Sustainability Commission, want to travel to Vancouver. It's 5 days they have to be down there. All they're asking for is a little bit of money to cover some housing and food costs, and they're going to meet with the Royal Roads group, and yeah, it's about a whole bunch of initiatives for the future of Rossland with regards to bringing higher education concepts here. And the people at the table said it's so important to the Sustainability Commission that, you know, they were like going like this in their own pockets, which they shouldn't have to do, right? So if you recall, the Sustainability Commission used to have a $40,000 budget, and they have 0 now. They don't even have a little pot of money. And I personally think that, not this meeting, but in the next meeting or 2, that I think we need to make a recommendation. It should go to discussion about them at least having like a $5,000 pot or something, or a $2,000 pot, or a $1,000 pot, so that they don't have to come to council if they want to do something that is proactive and really, really good value for $500. And then, yeah, so I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Can I add one thing about that?
Yeah.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, just so everybody knows, the Innovative Education Group has nothing to do with 7 Summits. It's not kids' education. It's the programs that they're talking about, bringing in people to town, you know, for sort of further education, or like having week-long seminars and things that will bring people into the community who will then spend their money here and all that kind of thing. So it's more of an economic development initiative, you know, that it doesn't have anything to do with the kids' school, just in case anybody was unclear on that.
Okay, thank you. And is there any other, I mean, if you want to make a motion on that, let's do it, let's move on. Councillor, and I don't mean that to be pushy or anything, but...
Oh, I'm not making a motion, I wanted clarity, that's...
Right, and okay, and then the other one, I would like clarity on that is the, well, first of all, one of their action items is they wish Mr. Quince to be appointed as the chair of the task force and a member of the Sustainability Commission, so I don't have a problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's one here about the Columbia Basin Trust Symposium.
Yep.
Is that not online? I think I got that. I don't know.
Yeah, that's in October, like,
Yeah.
coming up, and actually Councillor Moore is interested in going to that for council, and the tuition or whatever, the registration is free, and again, it's just paying a little, like, it's, I think, 3 days paying for okay, why can't I find where the recommendation is? Like, where is it in the package? Because I don't even see it.
In the minutes.
Page 207.
Oh.
Page 207.
Anyway, can someone read it to me, please?
Resolved
Did
that
I
the
pass that?
Joe?
Yeah.
Resolved that the Sustainability Commission recommends to council that a representative from council and/or a member of the Sustainability Commission attend the Columbia Basin Trust Symposium, and resolved that the travel expenses be covered by the city for a commission member to attend.
Yeah, so same thing, it's a CBT symposium, which is supposed to be very valuable.
But is that symposium, that was my question,
That's
not
one
available
question.
online, I believe?
No.
Oh, I don't think, I don't know, I honestly don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it
I've
was.
never heard anything about
You
it
know, I
being
went to
online.
it was either last year or the year before. I went to it, and it's a bunch
Okay.
of different, well, anyway.
Yeah, I just asked the question for clarification, is there, yeah, go ahead.
Just for more information, Councillor Moore and I attended the last one. I believe the CBT holds it every 5 years. Believe it or not, Kath, I think it was 5 years ago. And
Really?
And it is a really great symposium. It brings people from throughout the Columbia Basin. It is free, but there's limited seating. There's only about 250.
I think there's one spot left.
I did call Tracy Butler last week and ask her to get a spot. So we do have a spot for the city. I don't have any intention on going, but, yeah, just to throw a bit
I don't
more
want to discuss
information.
who's going or anything
No,
like that. I just wanted the clarification so that's not online, so if someone wants the information, they have to go there. That's all we needed to know.
Did you get that email I sent?
Okay, Joe?
Anyway,
Okay, so that's clarification. No motions on that, yes?
Sorry, just to understand the value of this, what do they learn?
I don't know.
so,
What was the question?
It's more of a symposium to bring members from throughout the basin to kind of supply direction to the Columbia, to the CBT board. So that's really what it is.
Okay, so there's any further discussion on that, on C, we'll move right along. On the motion to act on the recommendations, receive and file an act on the information items, all in favor? Why are you giving me that?
Okay.
Thank you.
Hurry up.
All in favor, opposed, motion is carried.
Oh.
Yes, Councillor Walsh.
Well, I kind of missed this. This situation regarding the Lions Campground and the letter that was written, I mean, at this point, it seems to be in the domain of the people who manage the campground.
Could be, Your Worship, sorry, I must have gone fishing there for a minute. When you look at D and E, there were some requests there too that.
Yeah, well, no one's-
needed to approve. There was no discussion, so we just assumed it was received and approved?
Yes?
Okay.
And as to the Lions Campground, I think it's in good hands. They have responded, and I don't think that it's appropriate for council to respond, so.
Did you get a copy of the response?
Yeah, we have the copy.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, so we are moving along to bylaws. Zoning amendment, MA1 recreational cabin flying assistant, that council rescinds first and second reading of bylaw 2556, zoning amendment 2013-4, and provide first and second reading to 2558, set a public hearing at October 15, 2013. Is there a mover to that, please? Moved by Councillor Fisher, seconded by Councillor Blumey. Any discussion on that? No. All in favor? It's not even 10 o'clock yet. Opposed? Motion is carried. That the city advance the staff request and adopts bylaw 2557, St. Paul Street Road Closure, bylaw 2557. Mover to that, moved by Councillor Spear and seconded by? Let's talk.
ready to speak.
Seconded by Councillor Fisher. Let's talk. Councillor Spear.
Okay, so the gentleman that came tonight, he actually came to the school at one point, was talking to one of the administrators there, and I didn't know anything about it at that time, but I think he's got some valid concerns about that corner, and I'm not sure if Public Works Operations has been up there and really kind of, you know, looked now that the kids are going up there, and that five-way stop there, and the way you got the yield sign and 4 stop signs, it really, to me, I don't know, it doesn't make any rhyme or reason to me either. And I know this isn't about this specifically about the bylaw, but it's about that strip of land that's adjacent to St. Paul. And I just think that we need to be really vigilant of that five-way intersection and the fact that now it's a really active intersection for kids and moms and everybody, for people. So, I'm not really sure what he was asking for, to be honest, but I just wanted to make sure that we, you know, his comments didn't get lost. And, yeah, so, I mean, I'm in favor of this bylaw, but I guess I just, all of a sudden it seems that there's a whole bunch of issues right along that strip on St. Paul and that lot there. So if we could just be really cognizant and conscientious about that, because it's changed.
Okay, and I'll speak to that, speak to the bylaw, I'll speak to that Public Works is very active in assessing that situation, and it's an ongoing process.
Thank you.
And safety was the concern of both people.
Yes.
And snow removal, et cetera, is Aaron's domain, and I'm sure safety is paramount in his mind, so we are looking after that.
Thank you.
Okay, on the bylaw.
No, I had,
Oh, what?
I second, don't I get to make a comment?
Yeah, oh, well,
It's not even 10 o'clock yet, is it? We got all night.
roll them up.
I would be, I wouldn't mind being curious of this, so we have a planning, department recommendation through the bylaw. It would be always nice on these types of issues to have, the consultant comments from, the manager of public works in there to say that, you know, like, I mean, at times, sometimes people might not see eye to eye, but I would like, you know, if we're getting 3 meters of snow storage more and giving up 2, is it something that Public Works thinks was a good idea when they reviewed it?
Well, that was in the original.
No, I know.
The original, but
it's not right here.
It's not right here, I agree.
We should,
Yeah.
perhaps Mr. Alamo could respond to that.
I mean, as far as,
I think what Councillor Fisher's saying is just have your recommendations attached to this.
That's it.
That's all.
Mhm.
You don't even need to.
Yes.
You don't even need to
That's
say
it.
anything.
We don't have to talk.
Okay. Anything further on the bylaw? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. The motion to recess to in camera, to return to in camera. Oh, sorry.
Reports.
You amended to.
I forgot reports because I left it on. Members' reports, 20 after 9. Councillor Spearn.
Here we go. I've said it all anyway. Did we send, or are we sending a letter of thank you to Renee at the Chamber, for her services as she's moving on? Chamber of Commerce,
We will
Renee.
make sure we do that.
Could we please make sure that we thank her for her dedication to her position and to her community? And she has worked really hard to improve the Chamber, and I really appreciate that. And I'm sure the businesses do. Okay, so Sustainability Commission, what else is new in the Sustainability Commission? Steve talked about the energy diet, 455 people signed up. I don't know if that's just Rawson.
No, it's not.
No, that's the region, that's the regional one.
But anyway, that's in the minutes.
Anyway, they're gonna do some further media blitzing to get people to actually do the work now if they've had the energy diet, this round on round 2. I've already talked about that, no, talked about that. One thing that came up at the Sustainability Commission was that Jim, I always want to say, Firstbrook. He, the license, the ThoughtStream license, you know, the survey, business that he has, that the license has expired, and so the Sustainability Commission said, you know, there's no reason right now that we need to use it for any kind of, polling or surveying of residents, so we're just gonna leave it until a time comes where they may need it to do a survey again, I guess. That was all. No, I have nothing else.
Yeah, just, for maybe future reference, that's in the minutes as well, right? So we.
Sustainability stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't need to repeat that in a report?
I don't
if
think so.
everybody reads that?
I don't
Unless
think
it's, okay, unless it's something speaking to recommendations.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Councillor Walsh.
No, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Okay, as you can imagine, I don't have much. I did just want to say that I had put an email in earlier in the summer when that first announcement about the CBT symposium thing came out, saying that I'd be interested in going, but if there's another councillor who wants to go, because I have gone in the past, I would relinquish my spot. Otherwise, I would like to go.
Okay.
And, yeah, I don't know if that's, do you want to ask if anybody else wants to go?
I'd like to go, but I'm fine.
Well, we've got a while, well, we have to know pretty quick, but,
Yeah.
we'll let you know.
Okay. And then the other thing is, I had a question on the CBT Community Initiative. in the, I think the minutes from another meeting, it said that Jim Green and Nadine were our representatives, and then tonight you just mentioned Jim Green. Do we only get one representative?
No, what we did was, we had one representative that council appoints to the board, and that's Jim Green, and we also choose to put a name forward that could be a director at large.
Oh, okay.
So the director at large, this is all stuff you can catch up on when you get back, but the director at large is they are three of them, I think, and they're chosen by the people that are on the board, I'll call them.
Oh, okay.
So that's outside of our hands.
Yeah, okay, that's great. Thank you, that's it.
Councilor Blumey. Don't say
Well-
one word about broadband either.
Well, actually, I have to say a little bit because I'm
Okay.
not very well prepared for this because I had broadband on my mind all day today and since I've been back. So I'm not very well prepared to bring up things about UBCM, except for that it was productive and busy. And a couple of things that I will touch on to that were kind of significant and came up repeatedly is I went to a session on conflict of interest, and so this is something that I'll bring up seriously at a later date. And it was actually run primarily, there were several lawyers that were running it, but the primary lawyer running it happened to be the one that lost the case of that, Schleemaker or
Schlenker.
the one that basically ruined everything for all of us. And so it was very interesting to get her side of the story. Anyway, so I will be certain that you guys benefit from that. Well, and we need to anyway, we need to make some decisions. The mobile business license, there was something on that, and now months ago, Renee Clark from the chamber and I had brought it to you guys, and we were talking about it. But we kind of let it go to the wayside because of broadband, actually. It just came up twice. Anyway, it's now, I think, back in. I talked to a number of people in the region, from different councils in the region, and everybody's willing to take a look at it, or at least some representative from the individual councils are interested in taking a look at it. So I will refine an idea, and generally, basically, it's the province that does all the work, and then we just decide if we want to join in or not, basically. They do the calculations, and generally, it ends up making more money for every municipality involved, at least the case study so far. They make more money than before because compliance is higher. And, you know, I think the rest is just going to have to wait until I can, you know, organize my notes a bit better and come back to you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, I'm good.
Okay, just a couple of quick things on the EBCM, and I think too, Councilor Blumey and myself, I think you're gonna get find most of my information, I'm gonna put it in information packages, because to blurb it all out here gets crazy. But our members' resolutions passed at the EBCM, the two regarding education. We did not win the Small Business Award, that we were one of 14 finalists for 7 awards. I have a nice little certificate, but no money. And community director funds, we already talked about that. Oh, I also went to the resort municipality meeting, and there's 2 ministers now that are responsible for that, Minister Bond and Minister Yamamoto. And there was no announcement regarding tourism infrastructure funding, just so you know. In fact, I'll leave it at that. And they said there probably would not be anything until 14. Okay, with that, that'll be my members' reports for this evening. A motion to go back to in camera.
Cookies.
Moved by Spear and seconded by Fisher.
I made cookies.
All in favor?
No, you don't need cookies.
I sound like Dieter when I say that. Opposed? We are going to in camera again for the rest of the night.
Yeah.
Oh, nice to see you.